Chapter 142. In an instant, only Lu Yuan was left in front of the Temple of Life. The light in Lu Yuan's eyes was restrained. If one looked carefully, they would discover that Lu Yuan's eyes were very different from before. There were actually two pupils overlapping in Lu Yuan's eyes. This was the legendary polychoria, and polychoria was the reward for this second check-in. Lu Yuan's polychoria was not like Dai Mubai's evil eye, which was just a decoration. It was the genuine polychoria, which only polychoria users who were born saints could possess. It came from a resplendent large world, which was a huge world that far surpassed the Douluo world by who knew how many levels. And even in that world, polychoria had quite a bit of fame. The power of polychoria was no small matter. With just a simple sweep of the eye technique, it instantly turned everyone into ashes. Lu Yuan kept his eyes closed just now because the power of the system was transforming Lu Yuan's eyes. And until just now, Lu Yuan had completely merged with polychoria. The current Lu Yuan could also be called a polychoria user. The power of polychoria could be said to be limitless, enough for Lu Yuan to continuously explore. Even if he became a god, polychoria could still provide unimaginable help to Lu Yuan, and how much power he could unleash from polychoria still depended on Lu Yuan's own ability. As expected, as long as it was a check-in mission, the reward would not be bad. The first reward was a one-of-a-kind killing martial soul, the God-killing spear. Although the killing aura was too strong and could not be used, and it would occasionally affect Lu Yuan's personality, when Lu Yuan could control the God-killing spear, this martial soul would display unimaginable power. This power was definitely more terrifying than polychoria today. That was once the most ominous weapon in the world. Although it was only a martial soul now, it definitely could not be underestimated. Although it could not be said to be able to kill a saint like the original god-killing spear, as long as Lu Yuan's cultivation was enough, killing a few gods would still be easy. As the saying went, those who had not reached the god rank could not kill god rank powerhouses. It might be effective against others, but it had no effect on the god-killing spear. This was because it was an existence that transcended the rules of the Douluo world. Today's polychoria was just as precious, much more precious than any soul ring or soul bone. After obtaining the dual pupils, Lu Yuan's spiritual sea had undergone an earth-shattering transformation. It had expanded several times, and his spiritual power had also skyrocketed. At the very least, he was a soul emperor. He was already close to becoming a soul sage. In this way, the faintly discernible influence brought about by the god-slaying spear had caused Lu Yuan's personality to become a little extreme. Under the effects of the polychoria, this trace of extreme had already quietly faded away. Furthermore, this was only the most basic usage of the polychoria. Lu Yuan did not even understand the basic abilities of the polychoria. As Lu Yuan's usage of the polychoria deepened, the influence of the god-slaying spear would become weaker and weaker. In the end, it would be completely controlled by Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan raised his hand and rubbed his forehead. The power of the polychoria was indeed great, but the consumption of spiritual power was not small either. It was just a ray of light, but Lu Yuan felt a slight dizziness in his head. He guessed that he could at most use this attack 3 times in a row before completely fainting. In the end, he was still not strong enough. He had a mountain of treasures, but he was powerless to use it. Lu Yuan secretly clenched his fist. The polychoria was still the best trump card. There was no need to reveal it normally. However, he had to work hard in his cultivation and strive to use the polychoria freely as soon as possible. He even wanted to completely control the god-slaying spear. Lu Yuan's polychoria blinked, and a trace of brilliance appeared in his eyes. He turned a corner not far away and said, "Brother Fu, since you're here, why don't you show yourself?" Ta, ta, ta. The sound of footsteps rang out, and a white-clothed figure walked out. It was Fu Qinsheng, who had interacted with Lu Yuan before. In fact, Fu Qinsheng had just arrived. The moment he arrived, he saw Lu Yuan completely annihilate the netherworld white tiger and an advanced soul ancestor close to a soul king. He was immediately shocked on the spot. And that wasn't all. Wherever the light swept past, all of the soul cultivators were turned to ash without leaving a trace behind. This caused a chill to surge up from the bottom of Fu Qingxing's heart. Just what kind of attack was that? But before he could react, he heard Lu Yuan's voice. He knew that he had been discovered, so he could only walk out. After seeing the power of Lu Yuan's polychoria, Fu Qingxing was now full of admiration for Lu Yuan. Even a Soul King wouldn't be able to use such a terrifying attack. As for whether a Soul Emperor could do it or not, Fu Qingxing didn't dare to be certain, but he was sure that it wasn't as terrifying as it was now. It was actually turned to ashes. In fact, Fu Qingxing had misunderstood. Because the polychoria had just fused with the polychoria, it contained the true power of the polychoria, so it was unstoppable. But now that the divine power was restrained, even if Lu Yuan used it again, it wouldn't be as powerful as before. Unless Lu Yuan could use the polychoria to a certain extent, then he would be able to reproduce the divine power from before. But even if it wasn't as powerful as before, Lu Yuan's polychoria wasn't something that just anyone could resist. At the very least, Soul Kings wouldn't be able to resist it. Brother Fu, long time no see. Lu Yuan smiled and spoke with a gentle tone. Hearing this, Fu Qingxing let out a sigh of relief. It seemed that Lu Yuan's attitude was still as gentle as before. He shouldn't have any ill intentions towards him. There was no other way. Lu Yuan's battle results were too frightening, and Fu Qingxing still had lingering fears. Brother Lu, long time no see. I've just arrived today, and I've already seen Brother Lu's divine power. It's truly a peerless style, Fu Qingxing said. Haha. Lu Yuan chuckled and said, Brother Fu overpraises me. How about you come with me to the temple? Haha, there's no need for that. I think Brother Lu still has some matters to attend to. I'll take my leave first. Fu Qingxing didn't want to enter the temple. The reason why those people died without a burial ground was because they wanted to enter the temple. He didn't want to court death. There must be something in the temple that Lu Yuan didn't want others to know. The more people knew, the more dangerous it would be. Fu Qingxing didn't want to take the risk. And with Lu Yuan here, even if there were treasures in the temple, it had nothing to do with anyone else. Who could snatch things from this guy's hands? Fu Qingxing was a person who knew when to advance and retreat. Treasures were good, but his life was more important. Looking at Fu Qingxing's appearance, Lu Yuan was stunned. Was he that scary? He was acting like a homicidal maniac. Those people wouldn't have died. Oh, maybe he doesn't know. After all, among those who entered the ruins, other than Lu Yuan, who knew that they wouldn't die in the ruins and could revive themselves, it was very rare. Fu Qingxing probably didn't know. But since Fu Qingxing was so determined to leave, he couldn't stop him. Since Brother Fu has made up his mind, I won't stop you. I hope we'll meet again in the future, then I'll take my leave. Fu Qingxing cupped his fists and turned to leave. Chapter 143. Brother Fu, please wait. Lu Yuan suddenly said while looking at Fu Qingxing in front of him. Hearing this, Fu Qingxing's footsteps paused. He was secretly shocked. Is he going to attack me? May I ask, Brother Fu, did you see anyone else coming here? Lu Yuan asked. Just now, Lu Yuan had only dealt with the first batch of people. They were strong, so they arrived first. However, there might be some people who came later and arrived later. Since he had already swept them, Lu Yuan decided to send them all out of the ruins so that they wouldn't disturb him and his senior sisters. This wasn't too difficult for Lu Yuan, who had already dealt with Davis and the others. Hearing this, Fu Qingxing's mouth twitched. As expected, this fiend. However, those people had nothing to do with him, and Fu Qingxing wasn't in the mood to keep their secrets. He immediately told him what he saw. Hearing this, Lu Yuan's mouth curled up. His eyes flickered. Half an hour later, calmly retracting his left hand, Lu Yuan gently exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. In front of Lu Yuan, one of the soul exalts that had been struck by the Atlas Palm's soul bone skill, Atlas Pinnacle, had turned into a cloud of green light and disappear. He shook his numb palms. Even though he had been through so many battles, his palms were still numb. If he didn't use a spear and used his hands, his body would be affected. After all, the world-shaking spear was already deformed. This weapon was originally quite good, but now it couldn't keep up with the trend. In the battle between Lu Yuan, the Netherworld White Tiger, and the Soul Devil Feather, it was completely scrapped. A mere weapon made of fine iron couldn't keep up with such an intense battle. Furthermore, Tang San, who made this spear, was still young, and his skills were limited. It was fine for a low-grade spear, but for a high-grade one, it paled in comparison. It seemed that he had to make a new spear when he returned this time. However, it was good that it was scrapped. After all, this spear was made by Tang San. If he used this spear against Tang San in the future, it would feel weird, even though he paid for this spear. However, there would always be a weird feeling. With the resources of the Martial Soul Palace, Lu Yuan could create a spear that was absolutely suitable for him. However, it would be great if he could obtain the Golden Dragon Spear. That would be a perfect match for the Golden Dragon Spear. However, where was he supposed to find the Golden Dragon Spear? Great Star Do Forest? Stop joking around. With Di Tian around, who would dare to go to the core region? Even though they were still hibernating, there was no way they could avoid them if they wanted to retrieve the Golden Dragon Spear. With Di Tian's cultivation, who on the Douluo continent could match up to him? Sendryu? I'm afraid that's impossible. As such, he could only dream about obtaining the Golden Dragon Spear. However, once he became stronger and obtained the God-slaying spear, he would still be able to slaughter his enemies. Then, it wouldn't matter whether he had the Golden Dragon Spear or not. Lu Yuan comforted himself in his heart. Alright, this is called sour grapes when you can't eat them. Furthermore, there was still a long way to go before he could use the God-slaying spear without any restraint, even if he obtained his polychoria. Lu Yuan reckoned that he had wiped out most of the soul masters who had come to train, so he turned around and returned to the temple. Hulena and Zhu Zhuqing had both absorbed the life spirit crystals. He didn't know how much progress they would make. Furthermore, he still had to heal his injuries. As he touched the thin wound on his body, Lu Yuan narrowed his eyes. That Soul Devil Feather wasn't simple. He had a premonition that he might encounter him again in the future. Evil soul masters were really detestable. Furthermore, their methods were very strange. They were really difficult to deal with. As he thought about this, Lu Yuan stepped into the temple. Inside the temple, Hulena and Zhu Zhuqing's bodies were emitting an emerald green light. That was the power of the life spirit crystal tempering and transforming their bodies. Once it was completed, their aptitude would be greatly improved. Although their soul power might not increase greatly, the life spirit crystal wasn't meant to increase their soul power. It was more for tempering their foundation and increasing their aptitude. Furthermore, the remaining life power that hadn't been absorbed was enough for them to cultivate all the way to the titled Douluo realm if there were no accidents. This was because it meant that they wouldn't face too many obstacles before they reached the titled Douluo realm. They could continue to cultivate until they broke through the titled Douluo realm. This was a little terrifying. Therefore, the life goddess's inheritance was really rich. The life goddess was indeed very generous. This life spirit crystal could even have a huge effect on the injuries of gods. However, the most precious thing was still the clear air god seed in his body. This thing was truly priceless. I wouldn't exchange it even if you gave me the position of God King. Seeing that the two of them still needed some time, Lu Yuan found a place not far away from them and sat down cross-legged, preparing to heal his injuries. Superficial wounds were fine, but there was a residual strange energy in the wound that kept invading his body and preventing his injuries from recovering. This energy was very dark and had a kind of evil smell. If not for Lu Yuan's strong physique, this wound would have caused a lot of trouble for Lu Yuan. At the very least, it would have been a serious injury. Lu Yuan circulated the clear air scripture. The clear air scripture suppressed the turbidity and had a miraculous effect on expelling this dark energy. The true chi of the clear air scripture circulated in his body, and traces of pure soul power began to gather at the wound. The originally strange and difficult soul power was quickly defeated by the impact of the clear air scripture. Lu Yuan controlled the soul power formed by the clear air scripture and enveloped all the strange energy. Then, he pressed it toward a certain point on the wound with all his strength. Kai. The strange energy was directly expelled from Lu Yuan's body by the clear air scripture, and a small ball of black blood appeared at the wound. This was the blood that contained the strange dark energy. When it fell to the ground, it made a sizzling sound. Once the strange dark energy was expelled from his body, Lu Yuan's complexion looked much better. He took off the mask on his face. Now that there was only him, Hu Lena, and Zhu Zhuqing, there was no need to wear a mask. Coincidentally, just as Lu Yuan finished healing his injuries, Hu Lena and Zhu Zhuqing also finished absorbing the life spirit crystals. The remaining energy was hidden in their bodies, changing their physiques little by little. Hu Lena was the first to open her eyes. A bright light flashed, and a large snow-white fox appeared behind her. Hu Lena's body also grew a snow-white fox tail. However, it did not stop there. A white light flashed, and Hu Lena's tails began to grow from behind her, instantly filling the surrounding 2 meters of space. 6-tailed, 7-tailed, 8-tailed, 9-tailed. This is the 9-tailed celestial fox. Lu Yuan's eyes widened. He originally thought that Hu Lena's martial soul would have a breakthrough after absorbing the life spirit crystals. Lu Yuan originally thought that it would be a 3-tailed demon fox or a 6-tailed spirit fox, but he did not expect it to be the strongest among the Fox clan's soul beasts, the 9-tailed celestial fox. Chapter 144. One had to know that Hu Lena's original demon fox martial soul was already a top-notch martial soul, and the heavenly fox was one of the top-notch martial souls. Heavenly foxes and demon foxes were the same, they were judged by the number of tails they had. Heavenly foxes with the same number of tails were stronger than demon foxes, but not by much. Heavenly foxes were undoubtedly top-notch martial souls, and demon foxes were also top-notch martial souls. Hu Lena's original martial soul was demon fox, and it was good at bewitchment. Heavenly foxes were different. Although their bewitchment techniques were not as good as demon foxes, their physical attack power was still better. Whether it was heavenly foxes or demon foxes, they were divided into normal, 3-tailed, 6-tailed, and 9-tailed. Hu Lena's original demon fox martial soul was actually different from an ordinary demon fox martial soul. There were some slight variations, so in terms of level, it was actually not much weaker than an ordinary 3-tailed demon fox. This was why her talent was so strong. One had to know that the strength of a 3-tailed demon fox's martial soul was comparable to the blue lightning tyrant dragon. Above the 3-tailed demon fox, it was not called demon fox, but 6-tailed spirit fox. Of course, 6-tailed heavenly foxes were still called 6-tailed heavenly foxes, and they were slightly stronger than 6-tailed spirit foxes. This was the racial advantage of heavenly foxes, but at the level of 9-tailed, it was the highest level of the fox race. When one reached 9-tailed, regardless of whether they were heavenly foxes or demon foxes, they were all called 9-tailed heavenly foxes. 9-tailed heavenly foxes had unparalleled bewitchment abilities, and their physical strength was not inferior to any top-notch spirit beasts. It was worthy of being called a superb martial soul. Once, the first-generation 9-tailed heavenly foxes were also gods of the god realm, but they fell in the war between humans and spirit beast. However, the 9-tailed heavenly fox's illustrious name was still well known among spirit beast. Lu Yuan originally thought that Hu Lena's martial soul would definitely evolve after absorbing the life spirit crystal, but at most, it would be a 6-tailed spirit fox. He did not expect it to be the legendary 9-tailed heavenly fox. This was a genuine superb martial soul. Even if it was not as good as his golden dragon martial soul, it was still a few levels higher than Clear Sky Hammer. Even Little Snow's 6-winged seraph was only slightly inferior. It could be said that Hu Lena's future was truly limitless. He really had the potential to become a god. It seemed that he had underestimated the power of the life crystal. Hu Lena's beautiful eyes widened slightly. Looking at her current appearance and her tail floating in the air, there was a trace of surprise on her charming face. Lu Yuan smiled and took off Hu Lena's mask. Looking at Hu Lena's beautiful face, which seemed to be more beautiful than before, he smiled and said, "Senior sister, how do you feel?" Helena blinked and said, "It feels great. I feel like my entire body has been refined, as if I have an endless amount of energy. Furthermore, my soul force has reached rank 40. Oh, 2 levels up." Lu Yuan nodded. Although the main purpose of the life crystal was to refine one's physique and martial soul, as well as raise one's life level, the energy it contained was enough to raise Helena's level. It was normal for her to raise 2 levels. Furthermore, Helena was only 14 years old. A soul ancestor at 14 years old, her talent could be considered peerless. Raising your level isn't much. Your martial soul's evolution is the greatest gain. Senior sister, have you heard of the 9-tailed celestial fox? Helena nodded. Her martial soul was a fox demon, so she had some understanding of the legends of the 9-tailed celestial fox. Senior sister, your martial soul is still a bit lacking compared to my golden dragon, but it can be considered to be of the same level. Lu Yuan smiled. The 9-tailed celestial fox and the golden dragon were both superb martial souls. Although the golden dragon was of a higher grade, strictly speaking, they were still of the same level. Hearing this, Helena smiled sweetly. Her martial soul had evolved, so her cultivation speed would be faster in the future. In the future, she would be able to help her junior brother even more. This was what Helena cared about the most. Lu Yuan lightly scratched the tip of Helena's nose, then turned his gaze to Zhu Zhuqing. His senior sister had undergone such a great evolution, so he wondered how much benefit Zhu Zhuqing would receive. At this moment, Zhu Zhuqing opened her black eyes as well. Meow! A cat's cry resounded throughout the entire hall. Zhu Zhuqing's ears perked up and turned into a pair of cat ears. Behind her body, a slender cat tail swayed freely. Behind her, a huge shadow of a civet appeared. This shadow was a pitch-black cat, but the strange thing was that there was a tuft of white fur on its forehead. Its eyes weren't the usual dark green of a cat's martial soul. Instead, they were a bright and clear blue. The entire martial soul exuded a powerful aura that wasn't the slightest bit inferior to Helena's 9-tailed celestial fox. What kind of martial soul is this? Helena's eyes widened. She had never seen a martial soul like this before. Zhu Zhuqing was also curiously sizing herself up. She looked at Lu Yuan with a pair of doubtful eyes. Lu Yuan sighed softly and said, "If I'm not wrong, this should be the most powerful martial soul among the cat-type martial souls, the 9 Lives Link." 9 Lives Links? Helena shook her head. She had never heard of this martial soul before. Even Zhu Zhuqing's eyes were filled with confusion. 9 Lives Links? What is this? Lu Yuan laughed softly and said, "The Netherworld Civet's bloodline originated from the 9 Lives Links. In other words, almost all cat-type soul beasts share the same ancestor. It's also the highest level of evolution that all cat-type soul beasts on the Douluo continent can achieve. Just like how the 9-tailed celestial fox is the ruler of the fox clan, the 9 Lives Lynx is the ruler of the cat clan. I have to say that both of you are very powerful. Both of you have evolved to superb martial souls." Lu Yuan looked at the two of them, and his heart was filled with astonishment. A piece of life spirit crystal was able to elevate both of their martial souls to superb martial souls. This seemed to be quite impressive. Thinking of the life spiritual crystal he had left, he wondered if he should use it for himself. Or should he leave it for Xiao Shui? Or should he? Lu Yuan thought about it, and decided to ask his system. For some reason, he felt that his system was a little too talkative today. It should answer his question. "You'd better leave this life spirit crystal behind." The system's cold voice sounded. "Why? Can't I use it myself or give it to Xiao Shui?" Lu Yuan asked in return. The host's golden dragon martial soul has already reached an extreme. It will become the golden dragon king if it evolves again. This martial soul is comparable to a godly king. The life spirit crystal has no effect on it. What if I leave it for Xiao Shui? Lu Yuan asked again. The result will be the same. The 6-winged seraph is already a god-tier martial soul. The life spirit crystal can't elevate it to the godly king level. Hearing this, Lu Yuan frowned. Then what's the use of this life spirit crystal? Lu Yuan didn't need it for purely tempering his body and elevating his level of life for the time being. This was because he hadn't even fully explored his golden dragon bloodline. There's a karma that the host needs to settle. This life spirit crystal will be very useful when the time comes. Chapter 145. Karma. Upon hearing that, Lu Yuan frowned. How could he have an unsettled karma? Who did he owe karma to? Master? I don't think so. Although he had studied under the master for 3 years, he didn't take the master as his teacher. Most of the time, he was self-taught. The master only gave him a few limited pointers. The master himself was eating and drinking in Notting Academy, spending the fellows' money. The fellows were his father, so they were no different from each other. The master spent the fellows' money to dawdle in Notting Academy and occasionally gave Lu Yuan pointers. This was like a modern-day parent hiring a tutor to teach their child to read. It was more of a transaction. No one owed anyone anything. There was no mention of karma. The system also said that he owed someone karma and needed to settle it. It also pointed out that he needed life crystals. This made Lu Yuan a little confused. This feeling of owing someone something out of nowhere and not knowing who the creditor was really a little uncomfortable. System. Tell me, who do I owe karma to? I knew it. Lu Yuan cursed. Sure enough, when it came to serious matters, the system would shut down. It just kept him hanging and didn't say anything. This damn character. He was speechless. Lu Yuan collected his thoughts and turned his gaze to Hu Lena and Zhu Zhuqing. Zhuqing, how many ranks has your soul power increased? Hu Lena had increased from rank 38 to rank 40. Zhu Zhuqing must have increased even more. After all, a soul elder needed much more soul power to increase by 1 rank than a soul grandmaster. Zhu Zhuqing closed her eyes and carefully sensed it. She said, it's about 4 ranks. I'm now rank 27. Rank 27, almost catching up to me, Lu Yuan muttered to himself. Was his strength increasing a little too slowly? However, he was already rank 29 before he was 10 years old. This speed wasn't considered slow. Then why did many readers say that the protagonist's strength increased slowly? Cough cough. Something seemed to have messed up. But Zhuqing is now rank 27. This is already catching up to her soul power when she was 12 years old in the original work. Moreover, the 9 Lives Lynx is a genuine superb martial soul. In the original work, Zhuqing inherited the deity position of the god of speed, a 2nd-grade god. She might have a chance to reach the 1st-grade deity position in this life. After all, a 2nd-grade god is still a little trash. Lu Yuan's thoughts. Among his women now, Qian Runxue was the chosen one by the angel god. She was destined to become the 6-winged angel god. She was one of the 36 over-gods in the celestial realm. She was a true 1st-tier god. Therefore, Lu Yuan was not worried about Qian Runxue. Hu Lena was now 14 years old, and she was already a soul ancestor. Moreover, her martial soul was the superb 9-tailed celestial fox. With such talent, it was enough for her to reach the 2nd-grade deity position. There should be hope for her to reach the 1st-grade deity position. Even if she couldn't do it, she should be able to consume 1 or 2 immortal herbs from the Icefire Yin-Yang well. It was the same for Zhu Zhuqing. With the 9 Lives Lynx and her current soul power and future potential, there should be a high chance of her reaching the 1st-grade deity position. Even if she couldn't, 1 or 2 immortal herbs from the Icefire Yin-Yang well should be enough. In this way, besides his teacher Bibidon, the future Rakshasa god, there were also 3 1st-grade gods, Chihiro Snow, Hu Lena, and Zhu Zhuqing. In addition, he had comprehended the clear air god and mastered the power of rule. Wow, it was a beautiful future just thinking about it. However, it was just a thought. Lu Yuan soon came back to his senses. That's right. Lu Yuan nodded. Junior brother, you should absorb the spiritual life crystal too. I'm sure you'll gain a lot as well, Hu Lena said. From her point of view, she and Zhu Zhuqing had already achieved so much, so Lu Yuan would definitely benefit even more from it. Lu Yuan shook his head and said, The spiritual life crystal is not very useful to me. However, I can assimilate that white seed. Helena nodded. Although she did not know why Lu Yuan did this, she knew that as long as it was something Lu Yuan did, there must be a reason for it. Lu Yuan sat cross-legged while Helena and Zhu Zhuqing stood beside him. Two pairs of eyes were looking at Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan took out the white clear air god seed and secretly connected to the system. Hey, stupid system, time to work. How do I absorb this clear air god seed? Lu Yuan had never used this thing before, so he was not sure how to operate it. Place it on your forehead and circulate the clear air scripture. This clear air god seed will naturally enter your knowledge sea. Knowledge sea? Yes, and when the clear air god seed enters your knowledge sea, its clear air will also have a suppressive effect on the god-slaying spear. In addition to the power of the polychoria, as long as you don't use the god-slaying spear in the future, it will not affect you at all. Moreover, if the situation is really critical, even if you use it for a short period of time, as long as it is not for a long time and you can retrieve it in time, it will not be too dangerous. Is that so? This is great. Lu Yuan was overjoyed. The god-slaying spear had tortured him for 3 years. Was he finally going to take the crucial step towards controlling it? According to the system's instructions, Lu Yuan placed the clear air god's seed on his forehead. The clear air scripture began to circulate automatically. Strangely, the clear air god's seed, which was originally motionless, emitted a faint white light after the clear air scripture began to circulate. Then, it disappeared into Lu Yuan's forehead. Knowledge sea. Lu Yuan's knowledge sea had changed greatly now. The area had expanded by at least several times, and it also seemed to be much more stable. The center of the knowledge sea was still firmly controlled by the god-slaying spear. This old man was not ordinary. He was very aloof. As for the golden dragon martial soul, it was dancing at a place slightly further away from the god-slaying spear. At this moment, the clear air god seed also barged in. The moment the clear air god seed entered, it pulled the golden dragon to one side, and then it charged directly in the direction of the god-slaying spear. It looked like it was also a ruthless character. After all, before the life goddess had picked it up, the clear air god seed had always been in the center of the divine realm. Now that it had entered the knowledge sea, it was also habitually occupying the core position. Swoosh. As if provoked by the clear air god's seed, the god-slaying spear instantly exploded with boundless power. That kind of overwhelming murderous aura instantly enveloped the clear air god's seed. The clear air god's seed's movements suddenly paused, and then it stopped in an instant. It did not go to the center anymore, but found a place and took root. This was not following the heart, but a tactical retreat. The moment the clear air god's seed stopped, it began to emit a dazzling white light. In an instant, Lu Yuan's knowledge sea, except for the core area where the god-slaying spear was located, was completely covered by the dazzling white light. The clear air scripture in Lu Yuan's body also began to circulate rapidly. As the white light from the clear air scripture merged into Lu Yuan's soul power, there seemed to be something extra. The power did not increase by much, but there seemed to be an additional kind of high and mighty divine aura. Chapter 146. Although Lu Yuan did not know what this holy and supreme aura was, he knew that it was not a bad thing for him. The dazzling white light merged with Lu Yuan's golden clear breath scripture soul power, and the clear breath scripture's circulation speed increased significantly. Moreover, an inexplicable aura spread from Lu Yuan's body. This aura was empty, distant, boundless, and encompassed everything. Zhu Zhuqing and Helena were the first to be enveloped by this aura. Both of them trembled at the same time, and then the nine-tailed celestial fox and the nine-lives lynx appeared at the same time, almost uncontrollably. They then lowered their bodies toward Lu Yuan. This was not pressure from their bloodline, but the submission of their martial souls from the bottom of their hearts. It was like the reverence of living creatures toward the heavens. This was not fear or pressure, but an instinct that came from the heart of all living creatures. The aura spread through the two of them and slowly spread to other parts of the hall. The heavenly realm. The destruction god looked at Lu Yuan and frowned slightly. The life goddess had an inexplicable smile on her face and said, Looks like this kid really does have some connection with that seed. He's really starting to refine it. Although Lu Yuan had only refined it briefly and the clear chi spirit seed had only entered his sea of consciousness, there was still a long way to go before he could completely refine it and control the power of the clear chi spirit seed. But at the very least, he had made some initial contact with it and had some results. It should be known that she had tried many times with the divine power of life, but every time the seed had no effect at all. It's still early. That thing isn't that easy to refine, the destruction god said. However, there was still a hint of doubt in his eyes. He had also refined the seed with his destruction power, but there was still no progress. Even his power of destruction and Greenie's life force had no effect on it. That brat from the lower realms had actually made initial contact with it and began to refine it. That seed actually had a reaction. Could it be that they, Grand Godkings, were inferior to an ant from the lower realms? The destruction god king was confused. The life goddess smiled and said, maybe the heavenly realm will have another godly king-level powerhouse in the future. She could also feel the energy within the seed. It was not any weaker than a divine king. If the brat below was capable enough, he could really become the sixth divine king of the divine realm. If that happened, the divine realm would become lively. It's not that easy. The destruction god was not as confident as the life goddess. He said, this kid is more than enough to inherit a godly king's position in the future, but it's not that easy for him to become a godly king. The heavenly realm has been around for countless years, and there were only 5 godly kings have been born. Furthermore, what kind of deity position can be born from a deity seed with no attributes? The god of destruction sneered and shook his head. He was not optimistic about Lu Yuan becoming the deity king. Furthermore, the energy contained within the god's seed was only comparable to that of a godly king. Even if that fellow were to control all the power of the god's seed in the future and become a godly king, he would only be the weakest existence among the godly kings. Otherwise, the god of destruction would not have been so calm after knowing that the goddess of life had placed the god's seed in the mortal world. But he did not know that the so-called non-elemental power was actually the power of clear air. It did not control the so-called authority of a region, but the power of the laws of the entire world, the entire Douluo divine world, and all the planes under its jurisdiction. As for the power that was comparable to a godly king's, it was just a godly object insulting itself. After hearing the destruction god's words, the life goddess nodded, but then she thought of the non-elemental power of the seed and shook her head slightly. The power of the gods in the heavenly realm came from their authority. For example, the sea god controlled the power of the sea, the angel god controlled the power of the sun, and the fire god controlled the power of the fire element. These powers were stronger, so they were all main gods. The weaker ones, such as the forest goddess and the snow goddess, who could only control a part of the power of the wood or water element, were second-tier gods, which was slightly weaker. As for third-tier gods, they were even weaker, so there was no need to mention them. The reason why the 5 great godly kings were high and mighty was because the powers they controlled were extraordinary, such as life, destruction, kindness, evil, order, and massacre. These were all powers with special attributes and were of a higher level, so they were godly kings. The gap between a godly king and a main god was huge. For example, the Azura god and the sea god. Even if the two fought in the sea, which was the sea god's home ground, the sea god was still no match for the Azura god even if he borrowed the power of the entire sea. And although Lu Yuan's seed had reached the level of a godly king, how powerful could it be without elemental power? It was indeed a pity. But for some reason, when the life goddess looked at Lu Yuan below, she felt that this kid would give them a huge surprise in the future. It had to be said that sometimes, a woman's intuition was indeed a little scary. The aura in Lu Yuan's body was still spreading, and soon it filled the entire hall. Just as this boundless aura was about to engulf the life goddess statue, Lu Yuan, who had been sitting cross-legged all this time, suddenly opened his eyes. The moment Lu Yuan opened his eyes, all the aura was instantly retracted, and then all of it sank into Lu Yuan's body. Lu Yuan opened his eyes, and a white light flashed across his double pupils. Seeing that Lu Yuan had opened his eyes, Hu Lena and Zhu Zhuqing hurriedly took a step forward. Junior brother. Lu Yuan had just raised his head, and what entered his eyes was a sea of white, which instantly made his blood boil. Lu Yuan subtly turned his head away and withdrew the divine power of his double pupils. Just now, he had been so focused on refining the divine power that he had forgotten that his double pupils were actually in a state of being exposed due to the divine power's stimulation. The eyesight of the double pupils was so powerful that even a person's bones and organs could be seen clearly, let alone a simple layer of clothes. In front of Lu Yuan, it was no different from not wearing anything. Thinking of the scene just now, even if he had the clear chi scripture to calm his mind and the clear chi divine seed to be neutral and peaceful, he almost turned into a wolf. Senior sister's figure is more perfect and flawless, but Zhu Qing's is bigger. Even if he tried hard to suppress his thoughts, Lu Yuan still couldn't help but have some dirty thought. After controlling his thoughts, Lu Yuan turned to look at the two of them. Junior brother, are you okay? Looking at Lu Yuan, Helena's eyes were full of concern. Cough, I'm fine. Lu Yuan's expression was indifferent, as if nothing had happened. It had to be said that when it came to the art of being thick-skinned, his cultivation was even more profound. When he was lying, his expression didn't change at all. Helena nodded, but Zhu Juqing was a little puzzled. She kept feeling that Lu Yuan had done something offensive, but there was no evidence. This once again proved that a woman's intuition was indeed terrifying. Chapter 147. Did you gain anything? Junior brother. Helena immediately looked at Lu Yuan to see if he had gained anything. To Helena, Lu Yuan was more important than anything else. Lu Yuan's heart warmed. Senior sister is indeed the most considerate. Sigh, Zhu Qing, can't you learn from senior sister? Lu Yuan's gaze turned slightly, only to discover that Zhu Juqing was also staring at him, her eyes revealing concern. All right, I take back my words just now. Juqing, you're also very good. It's good to have you guys. I did gain a little. Lu Yuan opened his hands, and a golden clear chi scripture soul power gushed out from them. The clear chi scripture's true chi was originally colorless, but due to the influence of the golden dragon martial soul, it had always been in a golden state. This is. The cold Zhu Juqing also looked over and saw that the golden soul power in Lu Yuan's hands didn't seem to have any changes, and a trace of doubt appeared in her eyes. Junior brother, your soul power doesn't seem to have any changes. Helena also didn't see any abnormalities and asked doubtfully. Look carefully, don't you see some white spots of light in this soul power? Hearing this, the two girls looked carefully. Indeed, there were some inconspicuous white spots of light in between the golden soul power. It was just that the golden light was too bright, so it was somewhat inconspicuous. This is? Helena asked. It's considered divinity. The white seed just now was actually a divinity seed, and these white spots of light came from the power of the white seed. It also added divinity to my soul power. Divinity? Helena frowned slightly. It was another name she hadn't heard before. The so-called divinity is the characteristic of a god in the soul power. For example, Xiao Shui's soul power has the divinity of the angel god, so her soul power has a high and mighty divine majesty. Furthermore, the injuries caused by the soul power containing divinity are also relatively difficult to recover from. Lu Yuan said. No wonder when you were beaten black and blue, your wounds were so difficult to heal. In the end, it was only resolved by teacher. Could it be that teacher? Helena seemed to have thought of something. Back then, Bibidon had easily healed all of Lu Yuan's injuries. Now that she thought about it, perhaps it wasn't simply because of his profound soul power. Yes, teacher's soul power also contains divinity. Lu Yuan confirmed Helena's guess. What other uses does this divinity have? It was Zhu Juqing who asked. Only she would ask such a practical question. The effects of this divinity are naturally not small. Although it doesn't directly increase one's attack power, it is also quite wonderful. The first is suppression. It has a huge suppression on soul power without divinity. The second is restraint. Soul power with divinity has an extremely strong restraining effect on some special soul power. For example, Lu Yuan's clear aura divine power. The so-called clear aura revered the clear and suppressed the impure. It had a huge restraining effect on all evil and filth. For example, now that he encountered the soul devil feather again, Lu Yuan's clear aura divine power would give him a huge restraining effect. This was much more powerful than Chihiro Snow's six-winged angel's divine power. Moreover, Lu Yuan's mouth curved into a smile, and said, "The existence of divinity will be of great help in transforming soul power into divine power in the future. The process will be much easier." Divine power was naturally not something soul power could compare to. When one's cultivation reached a certain level, they could use divinity to transform a part of their soul power into divine power before they became a god. From there, they could greatly increase their combat power. This was the greatest benefit of divinity. For example, Bibidon and Tangsan in the original work. Before they became gods, their soul power contained the divine power of the Rakshasa god and the sea god. Their combat power was much stronger than people of the same level. As for others, for example, Sendryu and Pasisi, as God's envoys, they could also control a part of divine power. Therefore, they were stronger than the limit Douluo in the original work. Of course, they still couldn't compare to Di Tian. After all, Di Tian had the dragon god's claw, which was personally taught by the dragon god. When Di Tian used the dragon god's claw, his strength had already surpassed the limit and reached the demigod realm. In the current Douluo continent, he was basically the top fighting power. Hearing this, Hulena nodded her little head. It was fine as long as there were benefits. The more powerful Lu Yuan was, the happier she was. Lu Yuan withdrew the soul power in his hand. He had actually only refined the clear air seed once, and had only obtained some superficial benefits. If he wanted to completely control it, it would be a huge project. However, this clear air seed had calmed his temperament a lot. Both the Golden Dragon and the God-slaying Spear martial souls were extremely aggressive, especially the God-slaying Spear. It had a huge impact on Lu Yuan's temperament. Unknowingly, Lu Yuan's temperament had become a little extreme. He wanted to kill everyone who stood in his way, including the Grandmaster, Tangsan, and the rest. But now, his temperament had calmed down a lot, and he wouldn't think of casually killing people. Killing people was just a little too much, but if he could play them in the palm of his hand, it would be more interesting. "I like it when you're unhappy with me, but you can't do anything about it. Because that makes me very happy." Looking at Hulena and Zhu Zhuqing in front of him, Lu Yuan smiled and said, "And the benefits aren't limited to that. Look at my eyes." Eyes? Hulena stared at Lu Yuan's eyes carefully, and was instantly shocked. "Junior brother, why do you have double pupils in your eyes?" "Of course double pupils are double pupils. Otherwise, why would they be called double pupils?" Lu Yuan laughed. "Double pupils? Could this be a mutation caused by refining that seed?" Hulena asked. Lu Yuan nodded, indicating that Hulena was right. After all, he definitely couldn't reveal the matter of the system to anyone, but he couldn't hide the fact that he had double pupils. After all, it was too obvious. Hulena and Zhu Zhuqing were distracted by something just now, so they didn't discover it. But they would discover it sooner or later. Only this reason could make up a reasonable origin for the double pupils. "What's the use of this double pupil? It can't be just a decoration, right?" Hulena asked. "Of course not. This double pupil can see through all kinds of strange objects, and it also has many eye techniques to uncover them. It can be considered a second martial soul, but it can't add soul rings," Lu Yuan said with a smile. "Is that so? That's too bad." Hulena sighed softly. It was a pity that it couldn't add soul rings. Lu Yuan only smiled at Hulena's sigh. Although the double pupil couldn't add soul rings, it was more powerful than any martial soul on the Douluo continent except for the God-slaying Spear. How could a mere martial soul's soul skill compare to its power? Lu Yuan's double pupil's chaotic light had wiped out two existences that were close to the power of a soul king, and there were many soul elders accompanying them. How could this power be ordinary? "Just now, you said that this double pupil can see through all kinds of strange objects." Zhu Zhuqing's voice was gentle, but there was a trace of coldness in it. "Yes." Lu Yuan nodded. Zhu Zhuqing smiled, and her smile was absolutely beautiful. That's very good. Seeing Zhu Zhuqing's smile, Lu Yuan didn't know why, but he suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. Not good, this is bad. Chapter 148. Not good, this is bad. Lu Yuan was alarmed. Zhu Zhuqing must have discovered something. Zhu Zhuqing's white hand climbed onto Lu Yuan's waist. So what did you see just now? She originally felt that Lu Yuan seemed to have done something offensive, but she couldn't say it and didn't have any evidence. But now that Lu Yuan said this, she knew that Lu Yuan must have used his polychoria to see her body. After all, he could see through all kinds of strange things. What was a mere layer of clothes to him? I didn't see anything. Lu Yuan smiled awkwardly and said, "It's just that I didn't have time to withdraw my polychoria's divine power. I saw your cough. It was just a glance, and I immediately moved my eyes away." Hearing this, Helena, who was standing at the side, instantly blushed. The smile on Zhu Zhuqing's face became even wider. Her white hand suddenly clamped onto a handful of soft flesh on Lu Yuan's waist, and then fiercely twisted. Hiss! Lu Yuan sucked in a breath of cold air. This pain rushed straight to his head. Seeing Lu Yuan's painful appearance, Helena secretly spat and said, "Serves you right, you pervert." In the ruins, a huge circular door appeared in mid-air. Almost everyone in the ruins had been swept away by Lu Yuan, and the so-called last round of the examination was already over. Thinking about it, the contents of the examination were really quite special. The first round was the forest, where soul beasts emerged in an endless stream. It not only tested a person's strength, but also their ability to survive and change flexibly. Only those with strength and wisdom could pass the first round of examination. Of course, the first round of examination was also a selection. Basically, those who could pass had some skills, and the second round was the ruins of the palace. The spirit herbs in the herb garden tested one's human nature. If one had a greedy heart, then they would definitely fail. This was the test that Lu Yuan and the others had gone through. As for whether the others were the same, Lu Yuan didn't know. After all, when entering the palace, there was more than one passage to the Temple of Life. If the herb garden targeted greed, then it was possible that the other areas targeted the gamut and anger. After all, the Temple of Life was left behind by the Goddess of Life, and the Goddess of Life was the wife of the God of Destruction. As the God of Destruction was the king of gods, he had 7 original sin gods under his command. It was easy for him to set up some tests to temper people's mind. And the final trial before the Temple of Life was a test of absolute strength. The treasures of heaven and earth belonged to those who were virtuous. What kind of person could be called virtuous? Naturally, that person was the strongest. After all, such a precious treasure left behind by the Goddess of Life couldn't possibly be obtained by a mediocre person. That would be inconsistent with the original intention of the Goddess of Life leaving behind the ruins. Lu Yuan speculated inwardly, and he more or less guessed the Heavenly Life Goddess's purpose for setting up each level. "Let's go." He smiled at Helena beside him, and Helena nodded slightly. Then he looked at Zhu Zhuqing beside him. At this moment, Zhu Zhuqing's pretty face was cold as she looked straight ahead, ignoring Lu Yuan's words. This little wild cat. Lu Yuan sighed inwardly. Helena was actually a cold person. On the surface, she smiled sweetly, but in fact, she was arrogant to the bone. It was only in front of Lu Yuan, her beloved junior brother, that she would be obedient and rarely throw a tantrum. She had always been very obedient. And Zhu Zhuqing? She looked cold and aloof on the outside, but in fact, she was very pure and didn't put on airs. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been able to blend in so easily in the original work. It was just that she was thin-skinned, shy, and a little arrogant at the same time. If Helena hadn't been there just now, even if Lu Yuan had seen it, she wouldn't have acted like that. At most, she would have been a little shy. But Helena was also there, so in order to hide her shyness, she could only pretend to be cold and aloof. Lu Yuan had already figured out this little arrogant temperament very clearly. Therefore, Lu Yuan didn't care about Zhu Zhuqing's cold expression at all. He gently held Zhu Zhuqing's jade-like hand. Her little hand was cold, but it felt good to the touch. Zhu Zhuqing didn't seem to feel Lu Yuan holding her little hand. Her pretty face was still cold as she looked ahead. Sure enough, a proud little wild cat. Lu Yuan laughed in his heart, and his other hand held Helena's soft hand. A suction force emitted from the circular portal, and the three of them were directly sucked in and then disappeared. Outside Senyu City, after Lu Yuan and the other two left the ruins, they came to a corner of Senyu City, but no one noticed them. They also didn't see the figures of the other people who had entered the ruins. Perhaps it was just like when they were teleported into the ruins. This time, the three of them were also teleported out. But the difference was that this time, the three of them were teleported to the same place. After discovering that they were already in Senyu City, Lu Yuan used the Martial Soul Palace's unique communication method to contact Golden Crocodile. Just like that, the four of them left Senyu City. Other than the Platinum Bishop of the Star Luo Martial Soul Palace, Osford, who knew about their whereabouts, the people of other forces didn't know about their whereabouts. It had to be said that even in the Sionra Empire, the power of the Martial Soul Palace still couldn't be underestimated. This was a remote place outside Senyu City. Golden Crocodile and Helena were waiting in the carriage, while Lu Yuan and Zhu Zhuqing were waiting on the road not far away. Zhuqing, do you really want to go? Come back with me, Lu Yuan said as he gently hugged Zhu Zhuqing. Zhu Zhuqing gently shook her head and said, I want to train on this continent. You've been taking care of me on this trip to the ruins. From the beginning to the end, I didn't help you at all. I want to help you. I don't want to be a burden to you. Zhu Zhuqing's tone was very gentle, but it was very firm. Zhuqing, you've never been a burden to me. Training is not only difficult, but also dangerous. You're a girl. To be honest, I can't rest assured, Lu Yuan said. Hearing this, Zhu Zhuqing revealed a beautiful smile and said, this time, thanks to you, I've obtained the life crystal. My martial soul has also evolved into a superb martial soul, the 9 lives lynx. Coupled with my rank 27 soul power, it's enough to protect myself. Zhuqing. Lu Yuan wanted to say something, but Zhu Zhuqing's slender fingers pressed against his lip. Lu Yuan, it wasn't easy for me to make up my mind. Can you stop trying to persuade me? I'm afraid that I won't be able to resist going back with you. You know that I don't have any resistance to you. Zhu Zhuqing's pair of big black eyes flashed with a deep affection as she gently looked at Lu Yuan. Zhuqing. Lu Yuan sighed softly. It seemed that Zhu Zhuqing had made up her mind. All right, I promise you. Since Zhu Zhuqing really wanted to go out and train, Lu Yuan wasn't willing to stop her. Holding Zhu Zhuqing's hand, Lu Yuan's palm shook and a token appeared in his hand. He then placed it in Zhu Zhuqing's palm. Chapter 149. This is. Zhu Zhuqing looked at the token in her hand, her face full of surprise. This token was the Martial Soul Palace's token, but it was not like the ordinary low-level tokens. This token had 5 pictures on it, and it was second only to the Pope's token. Among the younger generation of the Martial Soul Palace, only Lu Yuan and Helena had one. As for Chihiro Snow, she naturally had a higher level token. It had to be said that both Lu Yuan and Helena's status in the Martial Soul Palace was lower than Chihiro Snow's. After all, they were only Bibidon's disciples, not the Holy Sun and Holy Maiden. Zhu Zhuqing looked at Lu Yuan in surprise. With her knowledge, she naturally knew what this token meant. You're from the Martial Soul Palace. Zhu Zhuqing could not hide her surprise. Lu Yuan could actually take out a 5th level token. This meant that Lu Yuan's status in the Martial Soul Palace was not low. Even the Sionra Empire's Platinum Bishop Osfer only had a 5th level token. Yes. The current Supreme Pontiff is my teacher. Since Zhu Zhuqing was already one of his people, there was no need to keep this a secret from her. He believed that Zhu Zhuqing would definitely not reveal his identity. No wonder. No wonder Lu Yuan was confident that he could withstand the pressure from the Star Luo imperial family. After all, to the Martial Soul Palace, which was a colossus in the world of soul masters, No matter how strong the Sionra Empire was, it could not threaten him. Originally, Zhu Zhuqing was very curious about Lu Yuan's identity. How could he not fear the Star Luo imperial family? So he was the disciple of the martial Soul Palace's Pope. No wonder he had such confidence. It's a secret. Lu Yuan smiled. Zhu Zhuqing nodded heavily. Since Lu Yuan was not willing to reveal his identity, Zhu Zhuqing would naturally keep it a secret for him. No matter what plans Lu Yuan had, Zhu Zhuqing would support him. This was because this was her man, the person she had decided to follow for the rest of her life. I really can't bear to part with you, Zhuqing. Lu Yuan's chin gently pressed against Zhu Zhuqing's forehead, his voice full of reluctance. After the trip to the ruins, he had already fallen in love with this slightly arrogant little wild cat. Yes, it was not love, but love. Lu Yuan. Zhu Zhuqing called out softly. She looked at Lu Yuan with eyes sparkling with affection. Immediately, her pretty face blushed slightly. She seemed to have made up her mind. With a light tap of her toes, she gently leaned towards Lu Yuan's fairy-like face. Seeing this, Lu Yuan lowered his head slightly. What a scandal, what a scandal. Seeing the two's actions, the golden crocodile, who was standing on the carriage, was so angry that his beard trembled. This stinking brat actually dared to do such a thing in broad daylight. He was simply too daring. Where did he place Little Snow? It was just a trip to the ruins. How did he manage to hook up with another one? This brat, is he trying to anger me to death? Seeing Lu Yuan and Zhu Zhuqing's intimate contact, the golden crocodile was anxious. He was anxious for Chihiro Snow. One was Chihiro Snow, whom he had watched grow up. He had long since doted on her as if she were his own granddaughter, and he cared about her the most. The other had the golden dragon, a top-notch gold-type martial soul. The strength of the martial soul was not inferior to a god-ranked martial soul, the six-winged angel. Furthermore, she was the disciple he had taught wholeheartedly, the future successor of his legacy. They were both peerless talents and peerless beauties. From talent to intelligence to appearance, the two of them were simply a perfect match. Furthermore, the two of them had a favorable impression of each other. To the golden crocodile, the two of them were like a golden couple. As long as the two of them worked together, the future martial Soul Palace would definitely flourish in their hands. They might even unify the entire Douluo continent, and let the sacred light of the martial Soul Palace shine over the entire continent. This was the golden crocodile's dream. He also believed that Chihiro Snow and Lu Yuan would definitely be able to achieve it. But now, Lu Yuan he actually had another confidant. Then what about Little Snow? If Little Snow and Lu Yuan had a falling out, what would happen to the martial Soul Palace's future? The golden crocodile couldn't help but feel a little anxious. But he couldn't use force either. Looking at Lu Yuan's appearance, if he made a move on Zhu Zhuqing, Lu Yuan would definitely fall out with him. It might even affect his feelings for the martial Soul Palace and Little Snow. The gains wouldn't make up for the losses. It's difficult. The golden crocodile sighed. It was truly difficult for this old man. For the sake of the martial Soul Palace and Little Snow, this old man could be said to have given his all, but he just had to encounter such a difficult problem. Seeing the golden crocodile's anxious expression, the trace of jealousy that had arisen from Lu Yuan and Zhu Zhuqing's intimate contact instantly vanished. It was replaced by a feeling of schadenfreude. Damned stinking old man, this is what you get for trying to break up my junior brother and me. Women all held grudges, not to mention that the golden crocodile wanted to break up her and her most beloved junior brother. To Helena, this was undoubtedly intolerable. However, the golden crocodile was too strong, and she couldn't do anything to him. In fact, she had always felt a little uncomfortable in her heart. But today, seeing the golden crocodile almost lose his composure, yet unable to do anything, Helena couldn't help but feel happy. What a good junior brother. However, when she thought of Lu Yuan having a foot in 3 boats, even if Helena had already accepted her fate, she couldn't help but lightly curse. Stinking junior brother. Of course, she would secretly curse him. When her junior brother was here, she would always be the considerate and obedient senior sister. She couldn't let her junior brother know that she was secretly cursing him. Their lips parted, and Lu Yuan looked at Zhu Zhuqing with a gentle gaze. Zhu Zhuqing's charming face flushed red. This was the first time she had been so bold. Lu Yuan, I don't have anything to give you. I can only give you my first kiss. Zhu Zhuqing's jade-like hands pinched the corner of her clothes. Even though she was extremely embarrassed, she still mustered the courage to say these words. This was because after today, she didn't know when she would be able to see Lu Yuan again. This is the best gift for me. Lu Yuan hugged Zhu Zhuqing tightly in his arms. He was also very reluctant to part with her. Zhuqing, where are you going to train? I don't know. I'll just go with the flow. Lu Yuan's expression turned serious, and he said, in 3 years, Heaven-Do Empire, Sosno Province's Shrek Academy. I'll wait for you there. Shrek Academy in Sosto City? I'll remember it. Zhu Zhuqing said softly. I have to see you there in 3 years. Otherwise, my little kitty, I'll definitely punish you properly. Lu Yuan threatened her. All right. Zhu Zhuqing nodded her head gently. Use the token in your hand well. If you need it, you can use the power of the Martial Soul Palace. They'll help you when they see the token. Okay. Zhu Zhuqing nodded her head gently. Lu Yuan was silent for a long time as he watched Zhu Zhuqing's graceful figure disappear into the distance. After that, he turned around, and his eyes sparkled. Zhuqing, let's meet again in Shrek. Looking at the golden crocodile and Hulena in front of him, Lu Yuan said softly, let's go back to the Martial Soul Palace. Chapter 150. The carriage moved slowly. The golden crocodile was driving the carriage outside, while Lu Yuan and Hulena were in the carriage. A rank 98 pinnacle Douluo was driving the carriage outside. It had to be said that in the entire Douluo continent, Lu Yuan was probably the only one who could receive such treatment. Along the way, Hulena looked at the silent Lu Yuan and asked softly, why? Do you miss Zhu Zhuqing? Lu Yuan gently held Hulena's hand and said, a little. She's a little girl training outside by herself. How can I not be worried? Then why don't you keep her? I know that as long as you insist, she'll definitely compromise. After all, she loves you so much. Hulena said. Although Zhu Zhuqing was cold, Hulena could still feel her love for Lu Yuan after interacting with her. Although it couldn't compare to her love for Lu Yuan, it wasn't far off. I know, but this is her insistence. I don't want to stop her. Furthermore, she's always wanted to increase her strength and help me. If I forced her to stay by my side, she wouldn't be happy. He understood Zhu Zhuqing's thoughts, but it was precisely because he understood that his heart ached even more. Zhu Zhuqing was a good girl. Junior. Hulena gently caressed Lu Yuan's cheek and said, since Zhuqing dares to train alone, she must have her own confidence. Furthermore, didn't you give away your token? With that token, she can use the power of the Martial Soul Palace. I don't think she'll be in any danger. I hope so. Lu Yuan sighed softly. I wonder what kind of expression teacher will have when he finds out about our gains this time. I think teacher will be very happy. Hulena smiled and changed the topic. Lu Yuan smiled. How could he not understand Hulena's thoughts? He gently hugged Hulena. I think teacher will be very happy. Lu Yuan murmured softly. Bibidan's graceful and beautiful figure seemed to appear in front of his eyes. I wonder what teacher is doing right now. Hulena softly muttered as she lay in Lu Yuan's arms. Lu Yuan gently caressed Hulena's face and looked into the distance. Hulena looked at Lu Yuan, her fox-like eyes revealing a crafty look. Junior, what do you think teacher will think if he finds out that you're having an affair? Hearing this, Lu Yuan's body trembled. If Bibidan found out, wouldn't he be skinned alive? I think a magnanimous person like teacher wouldn't care about this, Lu Yuan said, but there was a trace of worry in his heart. It might not be a problem to have an affair, but two of them were Chihiro Snow and Hulena. This might be a bit of a problem. They were teacher's favorites. Thinking of this, Lu Yuan's heart was actually a little flustered. Poor Lu Yuan. He still didn't know that Bibidon had already made preparations to marry Chihiro Snow and Hulena to Lu Yuan alone. After all, other than Lu Yuan, who else could be worthy of these two proud daughters? Moreover, Lu Yuan was also Bibidon's most outstanding disciple. His appearance was like a banished immortal. Marrying Lu Yuan wouldn't be a grievance. Moreover, one shouldn't let one's own fertile water flow into one's own field. Looking at Lu Yuan's expression, Hulena burst into laughter. Stinky junior brother, now you know how to be afraid. Senior sister, what are you laughing at? Lu Yuan's eyes looked at Hulena unhappily. So you're quite happy that I'm about to be punished by teacher? I'm laughing at you. Who told you to have an affair with 3 men? Hulena snorted and said. Looking at Hulena's bright and beautiful face and seductive red lips, Lu Yuan suddenly had an evil thought. Who told you to laugh at me? Lu Yuan suddenly lowered his head and kissed Hulena's red lip. Feeling Lu Yuan's domineering invasion, Hulena slightly closed her eyes and let Lu Yuan do whatever he wanted. Outside the carriage, Golden Crocodile's face suddenly turned pale. Stinky brat. Here it comes again. Ari. Where did the courteous and devoted Ibuchi go? He was clearly fine when he was in the martial Soul Palace. How did he become like this after coming out? It must be that little vixen Hulena's doing. Thinking about how Hulena had faintly seduced Lu Yuan, the Golden Crocodile immediately snorted coldly. Xiao Shui, don't worry. Grandpa Golden Crocodile will definitely stand guard for you. Ibuchi's first wife will definitely be you. Feeling that Lu Yuan had only reached this step, the Golden Crocodile relaxed. It didn't matter, but the last step must be Xiao Shui's first. The Golden Crocodile made up his mind. As long as the two of them dared to take another step, he would immediately stop them. H, do you really think that this old man doesn't have a temper? I'm driving the carriage for you and still have to worry about this. Ari, it's really tiring. The Golden Crocodile drove the carriage while feeling the movements of the two. Just like that, the 3 of them sat in the carriage and headed straight for Martial Spirit City. 20 days later, Lu Yuan and the 2 of them finally entered Martial Spirit City again. Martial Spirit City is still the best. It feels like home. Hulena stretched lazily with a deep smile on her beautiful face. Hulena's figure was already very good. Stretching like this really showed off her perfect figure incisively and vividly. What should be perky was perky and what should be perky was perky. It was simply perfect. Moreover, ever since Hulena's martial spirit evolved into the 9-tailed celestial fox, her charm had increased by a lot. Not only did her charm increase, but there was also a hint of holiness to her, which made her even more attractive to men. Sometimes, when facing Hulena, Lu Yuan, who had the clear chi scripture and the clear chi spirit seed, could not control himself. Her charm was simply too great. Junior brother, what are you looking at? Seeing Lu Yuan's gaze lingering on her body, Hulena's lips curled into a smile. It seemed that her charm was still very great. I'm looking at you, Lu Yuan said with a smile. Junior brother, are you using your polychoria to peek at me again? As if thinking of something, Hulena's beautiful face suddenly turned red and she asked. Hearing this, a few black lines slid down Lu Yuan's forehead. He looked at Hulena unhappily and said, Senior sister, if I wanted to look at you, would I need to use my polychoria to peek at you? I'll just go up and look. Lu Yuan spread his hands and said. Ah, stinky junior brother, you're still talking. Hulena bared her fangs and brandished her claws, pouncing on Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan chuckled and hugged Hulena tightly in his arms. The Pope's palace. Bibidon sat high on the Pope's throne, holding a golden scepter embedded with colorful gems in his hand. Reporting to the Pope, the knights guarding the city sent news that young Master Yuan and young Miss Na have entered the city. A red-robed cardinal said. Oh. Bibidon's flawless face had a trace of a smile. Are they finally back? Set up the lake pavilion. Bibidon's clear voice rang out. Yes. Your Holiness the Pope. The red-robed cardinal said respectfully. Chapter 151. Hehe, It's been a long time. After returning to the martial spirit city, Helena was like a lively little fox. She skipped on the road to the pontiff's palace. She was very excited. Lu Yuan smiled faintly as he looked at Helena's youthful and lively figure. His heart was filled with a faint sense of happiness. Junior brother, let's go quickly. Teacher must be waiting for us. Helena turned her head and looked at Lu Yuan walking unhurriedly. She pulled Lu Yuan's hand and dragged him forward. You. Lu Yuan shook his head helplessly. They had already entered the palace and the pontiff's palace was close at hand. What was the hurry? Moreover, teacher was definitely not in the pontiff's palace. Senior sister, if you rush over like this, you will definitely miss him. Hey, junior brother, that's not the way to the pontiff's palace. Seeing Lu Yuan pulling her towards the pavilion in the middle of the lake, Helena was anxious. That was not the way to the pontiff's palace. Teacher was still waiting for them in the pontiff's palace. Shouldn't they go to the pontiff's palace first? Teacher is not in the pontiff's palace. Senior sister, just follow me. Lu Yuan pulled Helena's hand and walked towards the pavilion in the middle of the lake. This can't be, right? Usually, when we return from a mission, we will meet teacher in the pontiff's palace. Helena raised her doubts. Stupid. Lu Yuan flicked Helena's smooth forehead and said, how can we be the same as others? Others are just subordinates to teacher. Naturally, they will go by the book and meet teacher in the pontiff's palace, but to us, teacher and we are more like family. Have you ever seen anyone meet their family members in the office? Lu Yuan flicked Helena's smooth forehead again. Yes. After hearing Lu Yuan's words, Helena came back to her senses. Indeed, she and Lu Yuan were the closest disciples of her teacher. They were like a family. But, junior brother, can you not hit my forehead? It hurts. Helena put on an aggrieved look. Seeing this, Lu Yuan decisively ignored her. This girl's acting skills were here again. Holding Helena's hand, Lu Yuan strode forward. Junior brother, where is the golden crocodile? Why don't I see him? Helena glanced around, but did not find the golden crocodile. She could not help but feel a little strange. He went back to the elders' hall. Old Master Golden Alligator doesn't like to see you, Lu Yuan said calmly. Although he had colluded with the elders' hall and the Pope's palace, and the conflict between the two sides had subsided a lot, the golden crocodile and the others still had some grudges against Bibidon. It was normal that the golden crocodile did not want to see Bibidon. Moreover, the island in the middle of the lake was a private place for Bibidon, Helena, and himself. It was not appropriate for an outsider like the golden crocodile to go there. Oh. Helena nodded, but she was a little happy. Finally, she did not have to see the golden crocodile's old face. When she thought of the golden crocodile wanting to separate her and her junior brother, although Helena did not say it, she still felt a little unhappy. After all, her junior brother was the person she loved the most. This hateful golden crocodile actually wanted to stop them from being together. It was simply unforgivable. Moreover, this golden crocodile actually had some disagreements with her teacher. As expected, ugly people do more mischief. Teacher is so beautiful, so it is definitely not her fault. It is definitely the fault of the golden crocodile and that group of consecrated elders. A group of old bachelors, they actually want to bully a great beauty like teacher. No, when I grow up in the future, I must help teacher. Helena clenched her fist and made a decision in her heart. Lu Yuan naturally did not know what Helena was thinking. The two of them came to the lakeside. Lu Yuan suddenly smiled and said, Senior sister, do you want to experience what is called floating on water? Looking at the lake in the distance and the pavilion in the middle of the lake, Lu Yuan suddenly had an idea. With his current soul force and attainments in the Phoenix Dance's 6 illusions, floating on water should not be a problem. What is floating on water? Helena blinked her big eyes in confusion. You will know in a while. Senior sister, hold me tight, Lu Yuan said. Junior brother, hugging in broad daylight isn't too good. Helena did not reject Lu Yuan's hug. In fact, she missed Lu Yuan's hug very much. But now that the Bibidon was in the pavilion, Hugging in front of teacher was not too good. Hearing this, the corner of Lu Yuan's mouth twitched. He directly pulled Helena into his embrace. Helena exclaimed and was tightly hugged by Lu Yuan's left hand around her waist. With a slightly red face, Helena said softly, "Junior brother, why are you being so forceful?" "No wonder," Zhu Zhuqing said, "you are overbearing." "Oh." Lu Yuan lowered his head slightly and said, "Then other than saying I am overbearing, did she say anything else?" "She also said that you are overbearing with gentleness, cold with a hint of scoundrel. Looking at it now, it is indeed true," Helena muttered. "Hee." Lu Yuan smiled slightly. It seemed that Zhu Qing had really grasped some of his temperament. "Senior sister, let's go." Lu Yuan embraced Helena's suppression. With a light tap of his foot, the phoenix dance of the 6 illusions instantly began. With the tip of his foot lightly stepping on the lake, Lu Yuan's figure rose again. Then, he leaped a few feet away and gently landed. With another light tap of his foot, his figure moved forward again. With Helena in his arms, Lu Yuan's figure floated on the lake's surface. This is. Helena's eyes widened as she looked at Lu Yuan with eyes full of admiration. She really did not expect her junior brother to have such a skill. His qinggong was like water, and he looked so cool. Hearing Helena's surprise, Lu Yuan smiled slightly and sped up his pace again. At the pavilion in the middle of the lake, Bibidon sat in the pavilion. Her pair of beautiful eyes looked at Lu Yuan, who was running over the lake from afar. Her beautiful face revealed a trace of a smile. It seems that Ibuchi has improved quite a bit. His movement technique has actually reached such a level. Carrying Helena and still being able to run so lightly on the lake's surface, this skill could be said to be quite profound. It seemed that this trip out had allowed Lu Yuan to have some breakthroughs in his movement technique. Is the person in Ibuchi's arms Nana? Bibidon's sharp eyes saw clearly at a glance. It seems that Nana has already taken down Ibuchi. That's amazing, but Xiao Shue's sighed. Chihiro Snow was a very strong person. Would she be willing to share a man with others? However, this depends on Ibuchi's ability. It has nothing to do with me. Bibidon's beautiful eyes flashed a trace of light. She had completely forgotten who had encouraged Helena to pursue Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan would faint from crying in the toilet. Well, he might not cry. To deal with Chihiro Snow, Lu Yuan still had some tricks up his sleeve. Lu Yuan's toes stepped on the lake's surface. Suddenly, he seemed to have sensed something. Following the gaze, he saw Bibidon sitting alone in the pavilion in the middle of the lake. He did not go to the house on the island in the middle of the lake. Instead, he went straight to the pavilion in the middle of the lake not far from him. Chapter 152. Lu Yuan gently jumped out of the lake with Helena and stood not far away from Bibidon. "Teacher." In front of Bibidon, Helena didn't dare to be so close to Lu Yuan. She quickly got out of Lu Yuan's arms and bowed to Bibidon. "Teacher, you're back." Bibidon had a gentle smile on her face. In the martial soul palace, only Lu Yuan and Helena had such treatment and could see Bibidon's smile. In front of others, Bibidon was always that aloof and dignified female pontiff. "What did you gain from this trip?" Bibidon asked. "Not a small gain." As he spoke, Lu Yuan told Bibidong everything that had happened since he entered the ancient ruins. Other than the part about Zhu Zhuqing, he told Bibidong everything. Divine Seed. When Bibidong learned that Lu Yuan had obtained the divine seed of clear air, she was shocked. Others might not know what a divine seed was, but how could she not know? There were actually 2 ways to become a god at level 100 since ancient times. One way was to inherit a deity position, which was to inherit someone else's deity position. This method was relatively simple. Since ancient times, many gods had actually left their own inheritances in various parts of the continent. As long as there were inheritors who met the requirements to pass the 9 tests, they would be able to accept the deity position and become a god. Whether it was Bibidon, Chihiro Snow, or the protagonist Tang-san in the original work, they had all taken this path. The second path was to create one's own divine position. This path was much more difficult than the first path. One was the legacy of the predecessors, the other was the tree planted by the descendants. One was the inheritor, and the other was the founder. The hardships in this path were naturally much greater, and the difficulty was also much higher. Back then, the sea god had relied on the trident to conquer the sea for thousands of years before he finally became a god. How old was Tang San when he became a god in the original work? He was only 24 or 25 years old. There was almost no comparison. The difference in difficulty between them could be imagined. However, if one could obtain a divine seed that contained pure divine power, then creating one's own divine position would be much easier. As long as one continued to excavate and comprehend the divine power in the divine seed, one's own soul power would be transformed into divine power, and with enough divine power of faith, one might be able to become a god. Now that Lu Yuan had a divine seed, as long as he could unify the continent, would the martial soul palace be afraid of not having enough divine power of faith? At that time, it might be possible to create his own god. On the contrary, there was a lot of spaces creating his own divine position. And becoming a god of that, of course. Of that, it. Of it of God. Bibidon thought. What she didn't know was that other people's divine position might require enough divine power of faith to be achieved. But the clear air divine seed represented the rule power. In fact, it didn't require divine power of faith. Its difficulty was mainly in refining and comprehending its essence, which was the mystery of the rule power. Refining and comprehending the rule power was the most difficult part of becoming a god. Yes, teacher. Lu Yuan replied when he heard Bibidon's question. Then what's so special about this divine seed? Did you get any benefits after refining it? Bibidon asked. This divinity seed is rather strange. Moreover, it's extremely difficult to refine. I've only managed to refine a little bit of it. As for the benefit, it's that there's some additional divinity in my soul power. Lu Yuan didn't hide anything and spoke about his situation. However, he didn't say what kind of divine seed this divine seed was and what kind of power it controlled. It wasn't that he didn't trust Bibidon, but it was too shocking. So that's how it is. Bibidon nodded lightly. From what you said just now, you also awakened a second martial soul after refining this divine seed? Bibidon's beautiful eyes were full of surprise. Generally, twin martial souls were awakened at the same time. However, Lu Yuan's second martial soul was awakened. Even Bibidon had never heard of it. Yes, teacher. It's my eyes. They have now become polychoria and have many strange abilities. It's just that they can't be attached with soul rings. Of course, Lu Yuan naturally didn't say anything about X-ray vision. Otherwise, he was afraid that Bibidon would think he was some kind of pervert. If teacher misunderstood and doubted his character, then the gains wouldn't make up for the losses. It's really polychoria. Bibidon looked at Lu Yuan's eyes. Although the polychoria didn't appear, it wasn't difficult for Bibidon to see that it was extraordinary. Let me see it. Bibidon said softly. As soon as Bibidon said this, Hulena and Lu Yuan's expressions changed at the same time. What's wrong? Bibidon asked. Nothing, teacher. Lu Yuan turned around and looked at a lake not far away. Teacher, look. He didn't dare to look directly at Bibidon. His control of the polychoria was still not enough. If he didn't control it well and saw Bibidon's naked body, then it would be a big joke. If Bibidon flew into a rage out of humiliation, then the consequences would be TSK. Just thinking about it made him scared. Lu Yuan activated his polychoria, and a white light flashed. 2 rays of light shot out from his polychoria, and a huge hole appeared on the surface of the lake about 10 meters away. The lake water disappeared completely. That's right, it didn't turn into mist, but was directly annihilated. Bibidon's face was full of astonishment. The power of this polychoria was a little scary. The annihilation power within it scared even Bibidon. Of course, this polychoria couldn't hurt her, because the difference in soul power between Lu Yuan and her was too big. However, if Lu Yuan could become a titled soul master one day, then this Polychoria would be able to hurt an ultimate Douluo. As for why she said this, it was because Bibidon's current strength was almost at the ultimate Douluo's limit. Her intuition couldn't be wrong. It seemed like her disciple's second martial soul couldn't add soul rings, but its power was even more terrifying than a real second martial soul that could add soul ring. Teacher, this is one of my Polychoria's eye skills. It's called chaotic light, Lu Yuan said. One of them? Do you have other eye skills? Bibidon asked. Yes. Lu Yuan nodded. It's just that I don't have enough control over my Polychoria, so I can't use other eye skills for the time being. But as my strength increases, I can use them one by one. Bibidon nodded. Abuchi's second martial soul did have limitless potential. In addition to his first martial soul, the Golden Dragon, Abuchi's potential and talent had already surpassed Xiao Shui's, and even her own. He was truly a heaven-defying genius. Bibidon was very satisfied as she looked at Lu Yuan. All right, Abuchi, turn around. She gently patted Lu Yuan's head. After hearing Bibidon's words, Lu Yuan turned around out of habit. But halfway through, he suddenly thought of something and was startled. Not good. Chapter 153. He suddenly forgot that he hadn't retracted his Polychoria vision. He hurriedly retracted his vision, but his body had already turned around. How could he retract it in time? In an instant, a large expanse of snow white came into his sight. That seductive posture made Lu Yuan's lower abdomen heat up to his heart. Bibidon's seduction was much stronger than Hu Lena's and Zhu Zhuqing's. After all, Hu Lena and Zhu Zhuqing were still young and inexperienced, but Bibidon was already mature and in her prime. It was the most seductive period. But Lu Yuan was Lu Yuan, after all. Although he was shocked, he didn't panic. He hurriedly retracted his vision completely, and his face still looked indifferent. But in fact, he was panicking in his heart. But he definitely couldn't show this panic. Otherwise, haha. That result was definitely not something Lu Yuan could bear. Lu Yuan retracted his vision quickly. Although Bibidon felt a little strange, she didn't discover anything in the end. She just felt like she was being spied on, but then she immediately dismissed this ridiculous thought. With her cultivation, who could spy on her other than a god? But she definitely didn't expect that it was this disciple in front of her who saw her beauty. But fortunately, Lu Yuan didn't mention that Polychoria could see through all kinds of strange things. Otherwise, with Bibidon's intelligence, she would definitely be able to connect the dot. After all, based on what Lu Yuan had just shown, in Bibidon's heart, most of Lu Yuan's Polychoria's functions were to attack, but she didn't think of seeing through thing. In her opinion, Lu Yuan's Polychoria was only used for fighting. As for other things, she didn't think of them. Lu Yuan was nervous, afraid that Bibidon would discover something. After all, Bibidon's strength was so strong, and her perception was definitely not something an ordinary person could compare to. But after waiting for a while, Lu Yuan found that Bibidon didn't seem to have discovered anything strange. She couldn't help but feel relieved. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Hu Lena looked at Lu Yuan with an interrogative gaze. After all, Lu Yuan had just released his pupil light, and his dual pupils hadn't completely retracted his vision yet. If he turned around just like that, wouldn't he see her teacher? If that was the case, then, oh my god, that was too scary. However, neither Lu Yuan nor Bibidon seemed to have any abnormalities. A trace of doubt flashed through Hu Lena's eyes. Could it be that they really didn't see anything? Teacher, actually, other than me, senior sister has also improved a lot. Lu Yuan was a little flustered and quickly changed the topic. As expected, Bibidon's attention was diverted by Lu Yuan. Oh. Bibidon turned his gaze to Hu Lena. Being stared at by Bibidon, Hu Lena could only tell her situation in detail. As Hu Lena spoke, Bibidon nodded slightly. Inside the house on the island in the middle of the lake. This was Lu Yuan and Hu Lena's room. Lu Yuan sat on the bed, still feeling some lingering fear. What happened just now was really exciting. He actually saw his teachers, this dual pupils. He had to completely control it as soon as possible. Today, He almost fell for it. Luckily, he reacted quickly, and his skin was thick enough. The steadiness from many years of cultivating the clear breath scripture was still there, and his teacher didn't notice anything unusual. Otherwise, he really couldn't guarantee what his teacher would do to him, but to be honest, his teacher's figure was really amazing. As he thought about it, Lu Yuan's thoughts went astray again. He quickly adjusted his state of mind. He couldn't let his thoughts wander. That was his teacher. Don't think about indecent things. Don't think about indecent things. Don't think about indecent things. Slowly exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Lu Yuan's state of mind gradually calmed down. He had to admit that the clear breath scripture was still useful. Even in this aspect, he could quickly calm himself down like water. However, Lu Yuan knew that he still had one more obstacle to overcome. Helena, this girl, must have thought of something. After all, when he absorbed the clear breath divine seed, he had just finished absorbing it and didn't restrain his vision. As a result, he saw Helena and Zhu Zhuqing naked. Just now, he had just released the light of chaos and hadn't retracted his divine power, so he turned around. If he said that he didn't see anything, Helena, this girl, would definitely be suspicious. However, regarding the matter of seeing my teacher's body, I can't admit it even if I'm beaten to death. Lu Yuan thought to himself. No matter how Helena forced him, he would keep his mouth shut and never compromise. One must know that if he confessed, he would be lenient, or he would be in jail. Resist and go home for the new year. It was better to hide this matter in the bottom of his heart alone, Lu Yuan thought to himself. But why did my teacher leave senior sister alone? It turned out that just now, Bibidon had left Helena alone, and he had returned first. He had a feeling that there was some secret between these two women. This came from Lu Yuan's intuition as a man. At the pavilion in the middle of the lake, Bibidon and Helena sat opposite each other. Nana, congratulations on wooing Abuchi. Tell me, how did you do it? Bibidon's lips curled into a smile. It actually felt a little playful. Helena's pretty face was slightly red. She still remembered that when Lu Yuan had mentioned that he wanted to return to Notting City, when her teacher saw her absent-minded look, he had encouraged her to pursue her junior brother. She didn't expect that she would actually succeed. Now that she thought about it, her success was actually thanks to those few kisses. If it weren't for her forceful kisses and intimate contact which caused some changes in her junior brother's emotions, their relationship definitely wouldn't have progressed so quickly. Thinking of this, Helena actually felt a little proud. She felt proud of her courage in the past. However, when she thought about how her junior brother had taken in Zhu Zhuqing after just one trip to the ruins, Helena's pride disappeared. She had taken the initiative to throw herself at him. Zhu Zhuqing didn't have to do anything, and her junior brother took the initiative to look at her body. How could the gap be so big? As she thought about it, Helena actually felt a little indignant. Moreover, her junior brother hadn't completely retracted his Polychoria divine light just now. Did he see her teachers again? Thinking of this, Helena suddenly felt a little angry and prepared to teach Lu Yuan a lesson later. Seeing Helena in a daze, Bibidon couldn't help but call out softly, Nana. Ah, teacher? Helena suddenly reacted. Nana, what are you thinking about? No, nothing. Oh, then how did you woo Abuchi? Tell me. Bibidon laughed. Millimeter. Helena blushed and nodded. Then, she recounted the process of how she wooed Lu Yuan. In the room, Lu Yuan sat cross-legged. Since it was still early, he might as well take some time to cultivate. Now that he was already at level 29, he was only one step away from level 30. So, he had to cultivate well and strive to cross that threshold as soon as possible. Suddenly, the door seemed to be pushed open, and a delicate figure with a fragrance suddenly pounced on him. Lu Yuan couldn't react in time and was pinned down by Helena. Helena's pretty face was stiff. Junior brother, tell me, what did you see today? Hearing this, Lu Yuan hurriedly quibbled. Senior sister, I didn't see anything. Chapter 154. Is that so? Helena glared at Lu Yuan with a pair of foxy eyes. Of course, Facing Hu Lena's threatening gaze, Lu Yuan didn't react at all, and his face was indifferent. How thick was Lu Yuan's skin? Lying without blinking was just a basic operation. I don't believe it. You just released your ocular technique today, and your divine light hadn't been restrained yet. You turned around and just happened to meet teacher. How could you not see anything? Hu Lena's beautiful big eyes were full of doubt. Actually, senior sister, you don't know. I had already restrained it a long time ago. When I saw teacher, the power of my polychoria had already disappeared. Of course, I didn't see anything. Lu Yuan lied through his teeth. Really? Hu Lena's face was still full of doubt. It can't be any more real, Lu Yuan said. Then swear. Hu Lena was silent for a while and said, Swear? Why do I have to swear? Is an oath something that can be made randomly? You're just blindly playing the zither. Lu Yuan decisively refused. Oh my god, this Douluo continent had a god realm, and there were gods. How could he just blindly swear? He was really afraid of being struck by lightning. If you don't dare to swear, then you must be lying to me. Hu Lena snorted. Senior sister, look at my sincere big eyes. My eyes are full of truth. Why would I lie to you? Lu Yuan said affectionately, like a scumbag. To be honest, this was the first time Lu Yuan had lied so openly. He was still a little flustered in his heart, but Hu Lena shouldn't be able to tell. He couldn't be blamed for this. He really saw Bibidan's body. How could he say such a thing in front of Hu Lena? Although he believed that Hu Lena wouldn't tell anyone, this matter was related to Bibidan's reputation after all. No matter what, it couldn't be leaked. So no matter how much trouble Hu Lena made, he couldn't let it go. In your eyes, I only see dual pupils, Hu Lena said. Lu Yuan was speechless. Senior sister, tell me, when have I ever lied to you? Lu Yuan changed his strategy and began to play the emotional card. I didn't know before, but I think you're lying to me now. Hu Lena climbed onto Lu Yuan's body like an octopus. Her pair of big eyes stared intently at Lu Yuan. Upon hearing that, Lu Yuan remained silent. In fact, he was still used to telling the truth, especially when facing his own woman, Hu Lena. Lying in front of Hu Lena was actually quite uncomfortable in his heart. Looking at Lu Yuan's silent look, the uneasiness in Hu Lena's heart became stronger. Perhaps Lu Yuan really saw it. Otherwise, with Junior Brother's character, it was impossible for him not to swear. When she thought of Junior Brother seeing the teacher's body, Hu Lena's heart couldn't help but ache, although she also knew that it was just an accident. If Junior Brother saw someone else, Hu Lena wouldn't care. But the teacher was a figure that Hu Lena regarded as a mother since she was young. Naturally, there would be a knot in her heart. Thinking about it, Junior Brother might have the same torment in his heart. At this moment, Hu Lena seemed to understand why Junior Brother wouldn't let it go. It was because some things really couldn't be said. But what Hu Lena didn't expect was that although Lu Yuan couldn't say it out loud, there was no such thing as torment. At most, he would feel a little guilty, but even if she understood Lu Yuan, Hu Lena's heart still felt uncomfortable. She bit down on Lu Yuan's shoulder. This was the first time Hu Lena threw a tantrum at Lu Yuan. Pain. A bone-piercing pain. Hu Lena didn't show any mercy in this bite. She bit Lu Yuan's shoulder, causing blood to flow. Lu Yuan endured the pain and firmly suppressed the clear breath scripture's soul power that automatically circulated because of the pain. If he didn't do so, Hu Lena's silver teeth would be shattered by the soul power of the clear breath scripture. Pushing Hu Lena's head away, Lu Yuan's eyes carried a rare trace of anger. Hu Lena, are you rebelling? Facing Lu Yuan's angry gaze, Hu Lena didn't avoid it. Instead, she looked at Lu Yuan with eyes full of stubbornness. In an instant, Lu Yuan felt that the person in front of him wasn't that gentle senior sister, but Zhu Zhuqing, that wild cat. After all, Hu Lena had always been obedient. Looking at Hu Lena's stubborn gaze, Lu Yuan sighed. This matter was ultimately his fault. Even if he didn't do it on purpose, it was still his fault. He also understood Hu Lena's feelings for Bibidan. He had wronged her. The anger in his eyes gradually dissipated and was replaced by gentleness. Gently hugging Helena's waist, Lu Yuan slowly kissed Helena's red lip. Helena's delicate body trembled, and the stubbornness in her eyes quickly disappeared. Gently closing her eyes, Helena quietly welcomed him. Forget it, junior brother didn't do it on purpose. Why did he have to hold on to it and not let it go? He wanted to make me sad and embarrassed, junior brother. As these thoughts flashed through her mind, Helena took the initiative to welcome him, and the two of them hugged each other tightly. After dinner, Lu Yuan and Helena returned to their rooms. After washing up separately, Lu Yuan sat at the head of the bed, bored. In his hands, he flipped through a book of self-created soul skills. Recently, he had some new ideas. Junior brother. Helena leaned on Lu Yuan's shoulder with a docile appearance, without a trace of the stubbornness from before. Does it still hurt? Helena's white hand touched the wound on Lu Yuan's shoulder. That was the wound she bit, but she only felt uncomfortable in her heart, so she bit down hard. But now, looking at Lu Yuan's wound, her heart was full of heartache. It's okay. Lu Yuan caressed Helena's jade-like hand and said, "It's okay, my skin is rough and my flesh is thick. This wound is nothing. It was just a mere bite." In such a short time, with Lu Yuan's recovery ability, it was actually more or less healed. Junior brother, I was too impulsive, right? Before Helena could finish her words, Lu Yuan covered her mouth. Once again biting Helena's red lips, Lu Yuan had a gentle smile on his face and said, "There's no need to say these things between us." Helena nodded. Junior brother, don't cultivate tonight, sleep with me. Helena's charming face was slightly red as she said to Lu Yuan, "Senior sister, I'm still young now, can you wait for another 2 years? Lu Yuan refused. To be honest, he also wanted to do this kind of thing, but this body developed early, but after all, he was only 9 years old, 2 months away from 10 years old. At such a young age, to do this kind of thing, Lu Yuan's heart was still a little conflicted. After 2 years, he would be 13 or 14 years old, and Helena would be 18 or 19 years old. That would be the right time. Hearing this, Helena's charming face instantly turned red, and said softly, "Then we won't do that kind of thing, you just hug me to sleep, okay?" Hearing this, Lu Yuan nodded, "This is fine." As for cultivation, was it more comfortable than hugging Helena to sleep? Lu Yuan made a choice in an instant. Chapter 155. The next day, early morning, Lu Yuan opened his eyes, which were filled with satisfaction. It had been a long time since he slept so comfortably. When he was in the ruins, he had to pay attention to the dangers in the forest and take care of Zhu Zhuqing, so he slept very little every day. After leaving the ruins, he sat in the carriage every day, and sometimes even slept in the carriage. The long journey was very bumpy, which was also very uncomfortable. It was still better to return to the martial Soul Palace. It was second only to Notting City. After all, he had lived here for more than 3 years, and this was actually his second home. Looking at Helena, who was hugging him tightly and hiding her body in his arms, Lu Yuan's eyes revealed gentleness. Ever since Helena's martial soul evolved from a demon fox to a 9-tailed celestial fox, she had become much more beautiful. If it was said that Helena's original appearance was inferior to Qian Runshue's by a notch, then now it was at most half a notch. The gap between the two of them was not as big as before. His palm moved gently, only to feel that it was full of smoothness. Lu Yuan could not help but stare blankly. He had forgotten that Helena had come in naked last night. Thinking about how he felt last night, Lu Yuan could not help but feel a surge of passion in his heart. Senior sister's figure was really good, probably a little bigger than Little Snow's. Chihiro Snow's figure was also very good, just a little smaller than Helena, and even more incomparable to Zhu Zhuqing. However, Chihiro Snow's face was the best looking, and his temperament was also the best. What about Helena? Although she was not small, she was also not big. However, after her martial soul evolved, it seemed to have become a little bigger, which was really a pleasant surprise. As he thought about it, Lu Yuan's thoughts went astray again. He could not help but think of the scene he saw yesterday. If they were to talk about big, then his teacher was the real big one. Moreover, her figure was simply flawless. She was really a perfect goddess. He shook his head violently, shaking off the terrifying thoughts in his mind. What was he thinking? That's my teacher. Woo. Lu Yuan shook his head, but that movement woke up Helena in his arms. Helena's hair was messy, and her golden hair was stuck to her face. Her sleepy eyes lost some of her charm, but there was a hint of laziness and cuteness. Lu Yuan looked at Helena quietly, his eyes filled with adoration. What's the point of thinking so much? It's more important to cherish the people around you. Junior brother. Helena opened her beautiful eyes. Her pink eyes carried a trace of confusion as if she had just woken up. However, when Lu Yuan's immortal face entered her vision, all of that confusion turned into bone-deep affection. Sorry, I woke you up. Lu Yuan said softly as he pressed his forehead against Helena's. No, I was about to wake up too. Helena enjoyed Lu Yuan's closeness, her face full of satisfaction. Among junior brother's 3 women, only she could be so close to junior brother at all times. Chihiro Snow was far away in Heaven Do. Although Helena didn't know what mission he was on, she knew from Lu Yuan that it would definitely take a long time. Zhu Zhuqing was training on the continent all by herself. She still had to face unknown dangers and challenges. Only she could stay by junior brother's side and enjoy junior brother's love from time to time. Helena was actually very satisfied. Junior brother. Helena called softly. What's wrong? Lu Yuan asked gently. Kiss me. Helena pouted her red lips. Lu Yuan smiled lightly, then directly blocked Helena's red lip. Helena responded passionately. Lu Yuan's palm brushed past Helena's smooth body and went straight up. After being attacked by Lu Yuan, Helena's delicate body trembled, and her cheeks flushed red. However, she didn't avoid it, and instead responded even more passionately. Feeling the amazing softness in his hand, Lu Yuan's heart burned even more, and he even more passionately asked for more from Helena. Junior brother, where are you going later? At this moment, Helena was putting on her clothes. She didn't avoid Lu Yuan at all and asked as she put on her clothes. Usually, Lu Yuan would wake up in the morning to cultivate, but today, he was just sitting there in a daze. Helena guessed that Lu Yuan might have something to do. I'm going to the Elder Hall later. Lu Yuan's gaze swept past Helena's delicate body. Although he had seen everything last night, looking at her now still had an amazing temptation. Helena was indeed a peerless beauty, but it was a pity that he was still too young. Oh. Helena nodded lightly. It seemed that junior brother was going to meet the high priest. Helena finished putting on her clothes and came to Lu Yuan's side. She leaned on Lu Yuan and said, Junior brother, let's go wash up. Millimeter. Lu Yuan nodded, and the two of them went to wash up together. After breakfast, Lu Yuan headed in the direction of the Elder Hall. He had gained quite a bit from this trip. Furthermore, with his relationship with the Hall of Elders, it was reasonable for him to meet the Thousand Daos sect. Elder Hall. At this moment, the Elder Hall was empty. Only Sendryu and the Golden Crocodile were there. Seeing Lu Yuan's figure appear, the Golden Crocodile smiled and nodded. You're here. Greetings, High Priest. Lu Yuan first bowed to Sendryu. Grandpa Golden Crocodile. Then, he greeted the Golden Crocodile. Sendryu first looked at Lu Yuan with a scrutinizing gaze. According to Golden Crocodile, this kid had dared to flirt with other girls even though he already had share. He was really daring. Did he not know how much weight he was in? Today, he must teach this kid an unforgettable lesson. Sendryu looked at Lu Yuan with a straight face. The Golden Crocodile at the side. Abuchi, oh Abuchi, who told you to flirt with other girls even though you already have share? Now, even Grandpa Golden Crocodile can't help you. But this is also good. What's so good about those vixens? Share is enough. Don't blame Grandpa Golden Crocodile for snitching. I'm doing this for your own good, for Share's good, for the Martial Soul Palace's good. When Lu Yuan saw Sendryu's straight face, his heart started to pound. Could it be that this old man wanted to go crazy today? Or, Looking at the golden crocodile at the side, Lu Yuan understood. It seems that this old man told old Qian about my relationship with Zhu Qing and my senior sister. So, old Qian is going to show me who's boss. However, this young master had come prepared today. I'm not the same person I used to be. Sendryu looked at Lu Yuan and was about to release his aura to suppress him so that he would obediently ignore the two vixens and focus on Xiao Shui. However, when he felt the aura coming from Lu Yuan's body, he suddenly stopped. His face instantly became amiable, and the pressure in his eyes disappeared without a trace. With a gentle tone, he said, "Abuchi, if you don't mind, you can also call me Grandpa." Hearing this, the golden crocodile at the side opened his mouth wide. What? Chapter 156. For Sendryu, there was only one thing that he cared about the most in his life, and that was the martial soul palace. For this, even the continuation of his own bloodline had to be ranked behind it. Back then, Bibidon had devoured Chihiro Disease's angelic divine soul and entered the Rakshasa secret realm to accept the test of the Rakshasa god. Naturally, her body carried the aura of the Rakshasa god. Why did Sendryu not only not seek revenge when he knew that Bibidon had killed his son, but he also pushed Bibidon to the throne of the Pope? On the one hand, it was because Bibidon was Chihiro Snow's mother after all, and she had an inseparable blood relationship with Chihiro Snow. On the other hand, it was because Sendryu felt the aura of God on Bibidon. Moreover, it was not the divine power that was bestowed by God because they served God like oracles. Instead, it was the kind of person who was chosen by God and might inherit God's existence in the future. With the inheritance of God, Bibidon would definitely be able to bring the martial soul palace to new heights in the future. It was also because of this that Sendryu supported Bibidon to succeed the position of the Pope. The result was just as Sendryu had expected. The martial soul palace was flourishing under Bibidon's leadership. Moreover, Bibidon's current strength was not much weaker than Sendryu's. However, Sendryu did not expect that he would feel the aura of God on Lu Yuan's body today. Moreover, the aura of God on Lu Yuan's body was even stronger than that of Bibidon's. Actually, this was very normal. After all, Bibidon was tested by Luosha. He only had a trace of Luosha's divine power. However, Lu Yuan directly obtained the entire clear air divine seed. How could this divine aura not be dense? Sendryu was originally very dissatisfied that Lu Yuan was still flirting with other girls when he already had Chihiro Snow. After all, his granddaughter was an existence chosen by the angel god. The fact that she was interested in Lu Yuan was something that he had cultivated in his previous life. How dare he still be half-hearted? But now, after sensing the divine aura on Lu Yuan's body, Sendryu instantly changed his mind. Moreover, the ancient divine aura on Lu Yuan's body seemed to be of a higher level than the divine power of angels. Sendryu, who had served the angel god for most of his life, was able to discern this. One had to know that the angel god was a master god, a first-level god. How could there be a god above him? A divine king? Thinking that Lu Yuan had obtained the divine inheritance of such an existence, Sendryu's heart trembled. The dissatisfaction in his heart towards Lu Yuan's womanizing had long been thrown to the side. What? He has share and is still womanizing? What is this? He's a man. Having 3 wives and 4 concubines is normal. Back then, this old man also had a wife, but didn't I also fall in love with Pasisi? A fair and graceful woman is a gentleman's dream. Speaking of which, although Hulena isn't as pretty as Little Snow, she's still a stunning beauty. It's fine if I take her in. And that Zhu Zhuqing? What? The second daughter of the Sionra Empire's Zhu family is engaged to the Star Luo imperial family? Good job. We were originally going to be enemies with the Star Luo imperial family, but we took in Zhu Zhuqing and broke the Netherworld White Tiger. Good job. In any case, the current Sendryu was pleasing to the eye no matter how he looked at Lu Yuan. Moreover, although this brat had seduced 2 women, the one he loved the most was still Little Snow. That was enough. Good, with Little Snow who was chosen by the angel god and Lu Yuan who obtained the inheritance of a divine king, our martial soul palace wouldn't have to worry about not becoming stronger. Unifying the continent was just around the corner. Moreover, if this brat and Little Snow had a chubby child in the future, with this brat and Little Snow's talent, the talent of their offspring would be unimaginable. Then my Qian family would have a successor. Sendriu's mind instantly turned to 7 or 8 ideas. Looking at Lu Yuan, who wasn't too far away, his face was full of smiles. Abuchi, if you don't mind, you can also call me grandfather. Grandfather. Lu Yuan naturally didn't mind. He had long since treated Chihiro Snow as his wife. Since Sendryu was Chihiro Snow's grandfather, then calling him grandfather wouldn't be considered a loss. The golden alligator Douluo was stunned when he saw how close the two of them had become in an instant. Can someone tell this old man what's going on? After all, the golden crocodile wasn't someone like Sendryu. He couldn't feel the divine aura on Lu Yuan's body, so he naturally couldn't understand the reason behind Sendriu's change. Immediately, a pair of flickering eyes looked towards Sendryu. Sendryu ignored the golden crocodile's gaze. Now, he only wanted to build a good relationship with this guy in front of him. He didn't have the energy to pay attention to the golden crocodile. Looking at the golden crocodile's confusion, Lu Yuan smiled slightly. He didn't take the initiative to release the divine aura in his body in vain. Sure enough, Sendryu sensed it. Everything was similar to what Lu Yuan had expected. As long as he displayed the divine aura of the divine aura, then Sendryu would definitely not make things difficult for him. After all, he wasn't the original him now. He was an existence with the power to become a god. With how much Sendryu cared about the martial soul palace, how could he give him a hard time? After all, he was an indispensable help to lead the martial soul palace to become stronger in the future. Abuchi, if you have any difficulties in the future, come and find grandfather. Grandfather will help you. Sendriu's tone was gentle, as amiable as it could be. Millimeter. I got it, grandfather, Lu Yuan said. Come, tell grandfather what you encountered in the ancient ruins of the Sionra Empire. Sendryu guessed that Lu Yuan's god's inheritance must have been obtained in the ruins, but as for what god it was, Sendryu still didn't know. After all, he was only a god's messenger, and he only knew a little about the heavenly realm. He wasn't qualified to know the specifics. Therefore, he was very interested in Lu Yuan's situation. After all, this was an opportunity to learn more about the heavenly realm. Okay. Lu Yuan smiled faintly. With his intelligence, he would be able to hide 2 or 3 lies in 10 sentences of truth. He had tricked the 1,000 Dao flow into going in circles. In any case, this old man might not know much about the realm of the gods. Lu Yuan and Sendryu chatted happily, and occasionally, there were even sounds of laughter. Only the golden alligator Douluo was standing alone at the side. He was in a daze as he watched the two of them chatting happily. So, he was the only one who was abandoned. Heavens, this is so hard for me. 2 hours later, Lu Yuan walked out of the elders' hall happily. He was holding a golden token in his hand, with a symbol of a holy sword on it. Beside the holy sword, there were 6 white wings. The angel's token. Only the great consecrator of the elder hall, Chen Daoliu, had this token. Strictly speaking, it was on the same level as the Pope's token, but in reality, it had more power. The holder of the Pope's token was equivalent to the martial soul palace's elders, but the holder of the angel's token had the power to mobilize even the elder. Throughout the entire martial soul palace, only Sendryu, Chihiro Snow, and now Lu Yuan had this token. Even Bibidon didn't have it. Chapter 157. With Lu Yuan's eloquence, if he really wanted to make someone happy, it couldn't be any easier. Facing Hu Lena and Zhu Zhuqing, because they were his women, Lu Yuan didn't want to lie. But in reality, Lu Yuan's ability to lie was very strong. For example, when he was talking to Sendryu just now, Lu Yuan lied and coaxed him. His words were so exaggerated that Sendryu was stunned. Anyway, old man Chen didn't know. In the end, he was coaxed by Lu Yuan until he was happy and obediently handed over the angel token. He even said that if there was anything he couldn't settle, he could look for him. The golden crocodile who was watching from the side was dumbfounded. This angel token that was enough to mobilize the elders was handed over just like that. If this brat really made a scene, with this angel token, even this old man would have to listen to his orders. This Sendryu usually looked quite smart, but how did he become stupid after being coaxed by Lu Yuan? The golden crocodile wondered if the person in front of him was Sendryu. Didn't he say that he would take care of him? In the angel palace, Sendryu looked at the golden crocodile with a calm expression. Second bro, are you very curious as to why I gave the angel token to that brat? Sendryu said. The golden crocodile nodded. One had to know that Lu Yuan's talent was extraordinary. This was something that he and Sendryu both knew. But talent was just talent. Right now, Lu Yuan was still young, and his strength wasn't enough. Giving the angel token to him so early was a bit inappropriate. The reason is actually very simple. It's because this brat is the same kind of person as Little Snow. Sendryu sighed, his tone carrying some inexplicable feelings. On the Douluo continent, becoming a god was the dream of all high-ranking soul masters, especially those who were transcendent Douluo and above. Others might not know, but they more or less knew some legends about gods. And Sendryu naturally wanted to become a god as well, but as the angel god's messenger, he had absolutely no chance of becoming a god in this lifetime. The moment Little Snow became a deity would be the moment of his death. But he didn't regret it because this was the scene that the angel race had been waiting for 10,000 years. However, he was always worried about what would happen to Chihiro Snow after his death. After all, Chihiro Snow only had one relative, Bibidon. However, the relationship between Bibidon and her was. Therefore, he had always been worried about Xiao Shui. Later, Xiao Shui asked him for help for Lu Yuan and introduced him to Golden Crocodile as a teacher. Only then did Sendryu officially take notice of Lu Yuan. After a round of assessment in the Elder Hall, Sendryu recognized Lu Yuan's talent as extremely good. He was barely worthy of Chihiro Snow and had a chance of becoming a god in the future. But today, not only did Lu Yuan's strength increase a lot, he also obtained the inheritance of a god king in the god realm. There was hope for him to become a god in the future. Only then did Sendryu completely recognize Lu Yuan. If he were to die in the future, Xiao Shui could only be taken care of by this kid. Fortunately, this kid had deep feelings for Xiao Shui. This was something that the experienced Sendryu could see. Therefore, Sendryu didn't mind helping Lu Yuan now. With his support, Lu Yuan's path would be easier. Whether it was for Xiao Shui or the martial soul palace, it would be more beneficial. Someone like Xiao Shui? Could it be? The golden crocodile reacted. That's right, this kid is also someone chosen by God. Lu Yuan played with the angel token. He knew that from this moment on, he had received the support of the Elder Hall. It seemed that he had gained a lot by saying that the existence of the clear air god seed was the inheritance of a god king in the god realm. At least there were no more obstacles between him and Chihiro Snow. With Sendryu's support, he wasn't afraid that Chihiro Snow could escape from his grasp. As for whether or not his words would be exposed, Lu Yuan wasn't worried at all. Currently, only Hu Lena, Zhu Zhuqing, and Bibidon knew that he had the clear air god seed. The first two were his daughters, and the last one was his beautiful teacher. They were all trustworthy. Hu Lena and Zhu Zhuqing definitely wouldn't reveal any of his secrets. He was confident about this. As for Bibidon, with her relationship with Sendryu, he didn't believe that Bibidon would tell Sendryu about him having the clear air god seed. Strictly speaking, Lu Yuan didn't lie to Sendryu. This clear air god seed was much more advanced than the so-called God King's inheritance. Therefore, Lu Yuan was very calm in his heart. Now that Sendryu was willing to give him the angel order, it meant that the Elder Palace didn't oppose Bibidon as much. This was also beneficial for his teacher to control the entire martial soul palace. After all, he was still his teacher's disciple. Thinking back to when he saw Bibidon's body yesterday, he felt a little guilty. With his personality, as long as he saw someone else's body, he would definitely take responsibility. However, Bibidon was his teacher, and with Bibidon's current personality, If she knew about this, she would probably get angry and kill him with a slap. Lu Yuan didn't dare to take the risk. He was still too weak, so it was better to hide first. As for Bibidon's guilt, he could only help her in her career. At least, he could help Bibidon get rid of a few future enemies. Thinking about this, Lu Yuan felt like he was thinking about something. It seemed like he could go out and make a plan. Moreover, he hadn't seen Cher for a long time. This time, he could go to Heaven Do to see her. She must be very lonely and tired hiding in the Heaven Do Empire alone. He could go and accompany her. Moreover, there was also Zhu Qing. That girl was also very troublesome. He could inform Sarkaz and Osfa to inform the Martial Soul Palace to pay more attention to Zhu Qing. Now that he had the Angel Order, Lu Yuan had the authority to mobilize most of the Martial Soul Palace's power. Lu Yuan walked all the way back to the pavilion in the middle of the lake. You want to go to Heaven Do? Bibidon stood up and slowly paced back and forth. After a while, she turned back and said, Go if you want to, but be careful. Thank you, teacher. Lu Yuan smiled. As expected, Bibidon agreed to his request. This time, you should bring an elder with you. I think you should have the authority to do so now. Bibidon looked at Lu Yuan with a smile that wasn't a smile. Hearing this, Lu Yuan smiled awkwardly. As expected, he couldn't hide anything from Bibidon. I will. Going out alone with a titled Douluo to protect him was also good. Bibidon sighed and stretched out her hand to pat Lu Yuan's head. This immortal-like youth in front of her was her most outstanding disciple. She was still a little reluctant to leave the Martial Soul Palace. Feeling the warmth of Bibidon's hand and the fragrance coming from her body, Lu Yuan couldn't help but think about the wrong things. He scolded himself in his heart and then straightened his mind. Patting Lu Yuan's head, Bibidon said, Go and tell your senior sister. I'm afraid she'll be the saddest when you leave. Lu Yuan nodded. Chapter 158. After bidding farewell to Bibidon, Lu Yuan returned to his room. Helena wasn't around. She usually studied at the Martial Soul Academy during the day and would only return at night. As for Lu Yuan, Bibidon had originally planned to arrange for him to study at the Martial Soul Academy. However, Lu Yuan had refused because he didn't think that the Martial Soul Academy could teach him anything. Perhaps the teachers there didn't know as much as he did. Later, Chihiro Snow arranged for the Golden Crocodile to be Lu Yuan's teacher. Since then, Lu Yuan had no time to study at the Martial Soul Academy. How could their teachings compare to that of a rank 98 peak Douluo? Obviously, they couldn't compare. Moreover, the Martial Soul Academy wasn't like the Pontiff's Palace or the Elder's Palace, where the Martial Soul Palace's most trusted aides were all mixed in with the honest folk. If he wasn't careful, his identity could be exposed. For now, his identity still needed to be kept a secret. It would be more convenient for him to act. Since Lu Yuan had nothing to do, he sat cross-legged on his bed and began to meditate. As for why he meditated during the day, because if he meditated during the day, he could hug Helena to sleep at night. Wasn't that a good enough reason? Circulating the clear chi scripture, Lu Yuan entered a meditative state. Lu Yuan entered a meditative state very quickly. Since he had cultivated the clear chi scripture since he was young, Lu Yuan's mind was able to calm down very quickly. Even in the face of great temptation, Lu Yuan was able to restrain his mind. Otherwise, after sleeping on the same bed as Helena for so long, facing such great temptation every day, Lu Yuan would have been unable to hold himself back. When it came to self-control, Lu Yuan was actually very strong. Now that he had the clear chi spirit seed, the vast, boundless, and calm clear chi spirit seed, it was the best restraint against evil. Respecting the pure and suppressing the impure was not just a saying. Although the clear chi divine power didn't increase Lu Yuan's fighting power by much, it had a significant effect on Lu Yuan's state of mind. Although the clear chi divine power was still no match for the killing power of the god-killing spear, with the addition of the clear chi divine power and the power of the polychoria, Lu Yuan was able to get rid of the influence of the god-killing spear on Lu Yuan's personality. After all, No matter how strong the god-slaying spear was, it was still Lu Yuan's martial soul. On its own, it wouldn't harm Lu Yuan. The reason why Lu Yuan was constantly affected wasn't because of the god-slaying spear, but because Lu Yuan's resistance wasn't strong enough. He couldn't even withstand a trace of the god-slaying spear's aura. Compared to the host, the god-slaying spear's invasion on others would be 10 times or even 100 times the pressure that Lu Yuan would have to endure. It could be said that even Lu Yuan couldn't predict how much damage the god-slaying spear would cause once it was born. Even Lu Yuan himself couldn't do it. The god-slaying spear, even if it was just a martial soul, surpassed all the god-level weapons and super-god-level weapons in the Douluo continent. It was just that strong and invincible. In his sea of consciousness. His sea of consciousness was originally golden, but ever since the clear chi divine seed entered it, his entire sea of consciousness had 2 colors. Below his sea of consciousness was a vast golden ocean, and above his sea of consciousness was a white canopy. The god-slaying spear was right in the center of his sea of consciousness. It was quiet and very cold. A little further out was where the clear chi divine seed was. It floated high up in the sky and emitted an immeasurable amount of white light. It constantly surged into every corner of Lu Yuan's sea of consciousness. Even the golden dragon martial soul beside him was completely enveloped by that white light. The specks of white light seemed to be slowly seeping into the golden dragon. The golden dragon in his sea of consciousness wasn't actually a martial soul, but a martial soul spirit. In fact, every martial soul had a martial soul spirit, which was also known as spiritual intelligence. However, it was very rare for it to appear in the sea of consciousness. Lu Yuan was an exception because he also possessed the bloodline of the golden dragon. Furthermore, it was the bloodline of the second-generation golden dragon, which was extremely pure. Therefore, his martial soul's spiritual intelligence was relatively high. It even formed a martial soul spirit in his sea of consciousness. The existence of this martial soul spirit was undoubtedly a good thing. This was because it was beneficial for the communication between the soul master and the martial soul. At a high level, if a soul master wanted to advance further, he must comprehend the true essence of his own martial soul and truly integrate it with his martial soul. The existence of the martial soul spirit undoubtedly allowed Lu Yuan to be a big step ahead of others. The white light emitted by the clear chi divine seed enveloped the golden dragon's martial soul spirit. In fact, it was also beneficial for its spiritual intelligence to be enhanced further. At the same time, the existence of the clear chi divine light also allowed the golden dragon's martial soul to be tainted with a trace of divinity. It was different from the divinity in the soul power. Instead, the divinity was also infused into the martial soul. Once the golden dragon had divinity, it would be a genuine god-tier martial soul. Although the strength of the golden dragon itself wasn't inferior to any god-tier martial soul. Although the existence of the clear chi divine seed didn't directly enhance Lu Yuan's battle strength, it was beneficial to Lu Yuan in all aspects. Creak. The door was gently pushed open. There was no need to guess. Apart from Lu Yuan, only Helena could open the door of this room. It turned out that unknowingly, an entire afternoon had passed by in Lu Yuan's meditation. Is junior brother meditating? Seeing Lu Yuan sitting cross-legged, Helena couldn't help but lighten her footsteps. She gently came to Lu Yuan's side and sat down at the side of the bed. Her jade-like hands supported her fragrant cheeks as she quietly looked at Lu Yuan. Speaking of which, Helena also hadn't quietly watched Lu Yuan cultivate for quite some time. Thinking back, Helena quietly watched Lu Yuan for more than 2 years before she unknowingly fell in love with Lu Yuan. There was a kind of immortal face called the cultivating Lu Yuan. His face was cold, his temperament was ethereal, and the existence of the clear chi gave him a feeling of being otherworldly, as if he was a banished immortal. It was exceptionally attractive. It was because of looking at him for a long time that this face had long been embedded in Helena's heart. It was an absolutely inseparable part of her life. Helena quietly watched, and couldn't help but be a little infatuated. Senior sister, you're back? Lu Yuan finished cultivating. When he opened his eyes, He saw Helena looking at him infatuatedly. Lu Yuan said with a smile on his face. "Ian, I'm back." Startled by Lu Yuan's words, Helena came back to her senses and habitually leaned on Lu Yuan's shoulder. Lu Yuan gently hugged Helena's waist, and his right face gently rubbed against Helena's head. There was a rustling, ticklish feeling. "Senior sister," Lu Yuan said softly. "Ian." Helena slightly raised her head. "I'm preparing to go out and gain experience. Then I'll make a trip to Heaven Do to see Xiao Shui," Lu Yuan slowly said, meeting Helena's gaze. Hearing this, Helena's delicate body trembled. Her eyes were filled with sadness and reluctance. "When are you going?" "Wait for another month. This month, I'll spend more time with you in Martial Spirit City." Looking at Helena beside him, Lu Yuan's heart was filled with pity. He was afraid that he wouldn't be back soon. Speaking of which, he was somewhat reluctant to part with Helena. Fine, he would spend more time with her before he left. "En." Helena gently nodded. Although she was reluctant to part with him, she knew that she couldn't change Lu Yuan's mind. She would cherish this last month. "Senior sister." "En." Helena's beautiful eyes were fixed on Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan smiled slightly, and a brilliant soul bone appeared in his hand. "I have something for you." Chapter 159. This is. Helena's eyes widened, her beautiful eyes were filled with shock. "This is a skull. Its full name is the Spiritual Enchantment Dream Skull. It was taken from a 49,999-year-old dream demon fox. Its quality is extremely high, and its skull is very complete. It's not inferior to some skulls that are 50,000 years old and above. The key is that it's extremely compatible with you, so I'm giving it to you." Lu Yuan smiled. "This, junior brother, I can't accept it. It's too precious. You can use it for yourself." Helena hurriedly refused. It was so complete and was close to 50,000 years old. Such a soul bone was extremely precious and could only be found by chance. She hadn't done anything, so how could she accept such a precious gift from Lu Yuan? Furthermore, such a soul bone must be very useful to Lu Yuan. Hearing this, Lu Yuan glared at Helena. He grabbed Helena's hand and stuffed the soul bone into her hand. "Since I'm giving it to you, it's yours. Why are you still being so polite with me? Furthermore, this skull contains the power of enchantment. It's simply a natural fit for you. If I'm not giving it to you, who else should I give it to?" "But." "No buts. Since I'm giving it to you, you have to accept it. Do you hear me?" Lu Yuan stared fixedly at Helena and pretended to have a fierce expression on his face. Seeing Lu Yuan's performance, Helena chuckled. However, her heart was filled with gratitude. Junior brother had given such a precious skull to her just like that. It would be a lie to say that she wasn't moved. Seeing Helena obediently accept the skull, Lu Yuan's smile returned to his face. He hugged Helena in his arms and gently blew into her ear. "That's right. You're my woman. I'm just giving you a soul bone. You still have to be so polite with me." Hearing this, Helena glanced at Lu Yuan reproachfully. However, she didn't refute him. To be honest, this skull was indeed very suitable for her. "Junior brother, where did you get this skull?" Helena gently rubbed her left cheek against the side of Lu Yuan's face. Their lips inadvertently brushed against each other, instantly creating a series of sparks. Lu Yuan gently held Helena's red lips and kissed her for a while before slowly letting go. Lu Yuan gently pressed his forehead against Helena's. He stared into Helena's pink eyes and said softly, "Speaking of which, the origin of this soul bone is quite coincidental. It's also quite thrilling." Hearing this, Helena looked at Lu Yuan curiously. She was even more interested. After all, Lu Yuan had been with her since they were young. When did he get this skull? Helena couldn't help but want to find out. Speaking of this skull, I still have to mention the ruins left behind by the goddess of life. Alright, go ahead. That day, we entered the ruins together. In the end, we were affected by the teleportation formation and were sent to different places. All right. Helena nodded. She still remembered this very clearly. When she realized that Lu Yuan wasn't by her side, she was extremely anxious. She desperately searched for Lu Yuan for a long time, but she couldn't find him. She was disappointed for a long time before she slowly recovered. She would never forget this feeling of disappointment in her life. The feeling of losing Lu Yuan was as if the world had lost its color. If she hadn't kept telling herself that her junior brother would be fine, she probably wouldn't have been able to hold on. She probably would have broken down a long time ago. Therefore, that feeling was still fresh in her mind. When I realized that you weren't by my side, I searched for a long time. In the end, I walked into the forest. About half a day after I entered the forest, a layer of white fog suddenly appeared. I actually found Xiao Shui's figure in it. Ah! Helena exclaimed and said, "Isn't Chihiro Snow far away in the Heaven-Do Empire?" Yes. At that time, it was because of this that I felt that something was wrong. I was vigilant and wanted to expose her, but in the end, senior sister's figure appeared. What? Helena's red lips were wide open. Could it be? That's right. It was that dream demon fox who pretended to be you. She first exposed Xiao Shui's fake identity and wanted to gain my trust. Then, she went up to fight with the fake Xiao Shui and pretended to be injured. After I saved her, she attacked me from behind. Ah! Helena's face turned pale. Then aren't you in danger? Thinking of the situation that Lu Yuan was in, Helena's face turned pale. It was very dangerous, but fortunately, I was vigilant and found a flaw. In the end, when the dream demon fox wasn't paying attention, I pierced her heart with my spear. Later, when I was searching the corpse, I found this soul bone. Speaking of which, I was really lucky. If that dream demon fox hadn't tried to tempt me and attacked me directly, I would have been dead. After all, I was definitely not a match for a nearly 50,000-year soul beast. Fortunately, it was a dream demon fox and was proficient in spiritual power, but its physical defense was weak. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to pierce through its heart. Now that I think about it, it was really a bit dangerous, Lu Yuan said with a sigh. Hearing this, Helena tightly hugged Lu Yuan's waist and stuck her face close to him, afraid that he would disappear. Lu Yuan's description of how dangerous it was made Helena's heart palpitate. She didn't think that Lu Yuan would actually encounter a nearly 50,000-year soul beast alone. How dangerous was that? Fortunately, junior brother was blessed by the heavens and managed to escape in time. He even obtained an excellent quality skull. Lu Yuan smiled and hugged Helena's delicate waist. His voice became serious. After this incident, I learned a lesson. Having a strong physique is indeed a very important thing. Senior sister, you can't just focus on increasing your spiritual power. Your physique must also be improved. Junior brother, there's no need. Tempering the physique is very difficult. Helena acted coquettishly. She was a control-type soul master and was good at charming people. Her physical strength wasn't strong, and tempering the physique was much more difficult than cultivating soul power. She didn't want to do it. No, you have to go. Moreover, I want your body to be as strong as an assault-type soul master of the same rank. Otherwise, I don't want you. You decide for yourself if you want to temper your physique, Lu Yuan said. No way, junior brother. Helena opened her eyes wide. That's it. Do you want to do it or not? Lu Yuan said. I'll go. Helena looked at Lu Yuan with a wronged expression. Her foxy eyes were full of blame for Lu Yuan. Senior sister, don't blame me. It's just that you spirit-type soul masters' bodies are too weak. It's very easy for you to get injured. I'd rather see you sweat a liter every day than see you get injured and lose a drop of blood. Do you understand, senior sister? Lu Yuan looked at Helena closely, his eyes full of concern. Spiritual-type soul masters were indeed powerful. However, once their spirit-type soul skills lost their effectiveness, their weak bodies were practically defenseless. In the original story, Tang San's purple demon eyes were immune to Helena's charm. When she encountered Tang San, Helena in the original story was practically powerless. This was something that Lu Yuan absolutely wouldn't allow. His woman absolutely couldn't be such a fatal threat. Chapter 160. Seeing the concern in Lu Yuan's eyes, Helena felt a surge of warmth in her heart. The reason why her junior brother was forcing her was because he cared about her. The resistance in Helena's heart instantly vanished. Not only did she decide to properly train her physique, she also wanted to achieve great results and make her junior brother proud of her. Helena secretly set a goal in her heart. "All right, junior brother, I promise you," Helena said. Senior sister. Lu Yuan gently rubbed Helena's cheek. "Your martial soul has already evolved from a demon fox to a nine-tailed celestial fox. The nine-tailed celestial fox is a superb martial soul that is equally strong in both charm and physique. Therefore, as long as senior sister is willing to work hard, it won't be difficult for you to catch up to an assault-type soul master of the same rank. Junior brother, I also won't give you that kind of mission that you can't complete." Lu Yuan wasn't lying. The nine-tailed celestial fox's charm was naturally the best in the world, but its physique wasn't inferior to a top-notch beast soul. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to be ranked as a superb martial soul. Now that Helena's body had life-spirit energy tempering her physique, as long as she worked hard enough, it wouldn't be difficult to increase her physique. However, he was afraid that she wouldn't be willing to put in the effort. It was also because of this that Lu Yuan deliberately forced her. Thinking about it, with Lu Yuan's feelings for Helena, how could he really let Helena do that kind of impossible mission? As long as her physique caught up, coupled with the nine-tailed celestial fox's ultimate charm, Helena wouldn't have any shortcomings. Then, he could rest assured. In this way, even if she met a special soul master, her charm would be ineffective, and Helena wouldn't be unable to resist. Senior sister, how's your comprehension of the Phoenix Dance's 6 illusions that I gave you last time? Lu Yuan suddenly thought of something and asked. Helena's pretty face revealed a trace of embarrassment as she said, "I only learned a little bit. This Phoenix Dance of the 6 illusions movement technique was too profound." She had never practiced martial arts before and was unable to understand some of the terms, so it was rather difficult for her to cultivate it. Therefore, she spent very little time on it and had only learned a little bit of it up until now. Hearing this, Lu Yuan's face darkened. "So this is your attitude after I gave you my movement technique, junior brother?" Seeing that Lu Yuan's expression was not right, Helena knew that Lu Yuan was definitely angry. She quickly activated her innate skill, coquettish. Helena gently rubbed Lu Yuan's cheek with a pitiful look in her eyes. "Don't give me that." Lu Yuan glared at her and said, "From tomorrow onwards, don't go to the Martial Soul Academy. I'll personally supervise your cultivation of the Phoenix Dance's 6 illusions. If you don't master it, don't even think about going anywhere." "It can't be, junior brother." Helena was anxious. Although she liked to stay by Lu Yuan's side, she didn't like the feeling of being confined. Moreover, she couldn't go anywhere. For someone as active as her, this was torture. She still wanted to go shopping in the martial soul city. "Junior brother." Helena pulled Lu Yuan's hand and swung it left and right. Her face had an aggrieved expression. Coupled with her beautiful face, it really made people feel pity for her. "Don't act coquettishly with me. I won't fall for it. It's decided." Lu Yuan directly ignored Helena's coquettish act. This girl was treating his good intentions as ill intent. The Phoenix Dance's 6 illusions was an exquisite movement technique. Others couldn't obtain it even if they wanted it, but this girl actually threw it to the side. How could Lu Yuan not be angry in his heart? "If I don't go to the Martial Soul Academy for a long time, my brother will be anxious." Helena immediately used Evil Moon as a scapegoat. However, she was wrong. Lu Yuan didn't care about Evil Moon at all. "Then let him be anxious," Lu Yuan said indifferently. "The teachers at the Martial Soul Academy will also be anxious. I'm a top student of the Martial Soul Academy. If I don't appear for a long time, they will definitely panic." Helena continued. "It's fine. I'll let the chrysanthemum Douluo inform them. You can practice in peace." Hearing this, Helena's heart skipped a beat. However, In the blink of an eye, another idea came to her mind. This time, she was sure that she could convince her junior brother. Junior brother, didn't you say that you wanted me to train my body? But if I stay to practice my movement technique, I won't have time to train my body, Helena said. She felt that this reason was perfect. This was Lu Yuan's own words. He had no reason to refute it. Thinking about how she could freely go shopping, Helena couldn't help but narrow her eyes. Of course, she still had to accompany her junior brother most of the time. After all, he was her most beloved junior brother. As for the rest of the time, she could visit her teachers and go to the academy to play. As for her brother, she could just find some time to visit him. There was no need to waste too much time. Helena couldn't help but think to herself. After hearing Helena's words, Lu Yuan smiled slightly. His smile was very gentle, but for some reason, it made Helena feel a chill. It was as if something bad was about to happen. Train your body? Lu Yuan asked. Yes. Helena nodded. I have an idea. When you practice your movement technique, you can carry a few stones on your back. This way, you can train your body and practice your movement technique at the same time. After saying this, Lu Yuan revealed a very bright smile. Oh, no. Helena's expression changed instantly. She finally knew where the bad premonition came from. Just accept your fate, my good senior sister. Lu Yuan tapped Helena's nose. His smile was bright and warm. But in Helena's eyes, it was like a devil's smile. A month's time passed in the blink of an eye. In this month, Lu Yuan resolutely carried out his own words. Every day, he would carry out a task, which was to urge Helena to practice her movement technique. Only Lu Yuan could come up with the idea of carrying a few dozen kilograms of stones to practice the Phoenix Dance 6 illusions. Every day, when he saw Helena's clumsy steps, which didn't have the elegance of a phoenix and instead had the dullness of a duck, Lu Yuan had the urge to laugh. That look of him trying to hold back his laughter always made Helena stomp her feet. Every time after training, she would pounce on him and fiercely bite him a few times before she was willing to stop. In this month, with Lu Yuan's devoted guidance, Helena's grasp of the Phoenix Dance 6 illusions had increased by a lot. She had already reached the realm of small success. After all, Helena's talent was very high. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been taken in as a disciple by Bibidon. And with the small success of the Phoenix Dance 6 illusions, there was no doubt that Helena's speed had increased by a lot. After a month's time, after reluctantly bidding farewell to Helena, Lu Yuan also embarked on his journey to the Heaven Do Empire. Of course, he brought along a titled Douluo to protect him. He wasn't a consecrator from the consecration hall, but an elder who hadn't appeared in the original novel. His soul power was only at rank 93, and he kept a low profile in the martial soul palace. Even in the outside world, very few people had seen him. However, a rank 93 titled Douluo was more or less enough to protect Lu Yuan's safety. One had to know that even Chihiro Snow only had 2 titled Douluo by his side, the snake spear and the thorny pufferfish, and their soul power was only at this level. After a long journey, Lu Yuan finally arrived at Heaven Do City. Chapter 161. Heaven Do Imperial City. Lu Yuan was dressed in white, his long black hair draped over his shoulders. He walked alone on the streets of the Heaven Do Empire, his aura elegant and unrestrained, making him stand out from the crowd. Lu Yuan's clothes weren't luxurious, but upon closer inspection, one could see that they were made of high-quality cloud silk. It was low-key, but it didn't lose its taste. Lu Yuan walked calmly, not caring about the curious gazes from the crowd. He had seen such gazes many times. After all, with his temperament and appearance, as long as he walked in a crowd without a mask, he would always be the first to attract attention, especially those young ladies. Heaven Do Imperial City? Not bad. Heaven Do Imperial City was indeed the capital of the Heaven Do Empire. In terms of prosperity, it wasn't much worse than Martial Spirit City. It was even more luxurious than the other capital of the Sionra Empire, Star Luo City. However, this was understandable. The Seonra Empire believed in iron and blood, and valued strength. Although they also coveted pleasure, there was a limit to it. However, the Heaven-Do Empire was even more decadent. The nobles coveted pleasure and indulged in a life of luxury. Naturally, the imperial city was more prosperous. Sometimes, the strength of a country could be gauged from the atmosphere and prosperity of the cities under its rule, as well as the actions of the people, especially the actions of the upper echelons. From Lu Yuan's point of view, the Heaven-Do Empire had already decayed to a certain extent. Along the way, he had already seen quite a few places where people could seek pleasure and make merry. Such things basically didn't exist in martial spirit city. With Bibidan's leadership and powerful methods, even if some of the upper echelons had the same thoughts, they didn't dare to try it out because of Bibidan's might. This was because goods could only be produced when there was a market. The reason why the Heaven-Do Empire had so many entertainment venues was inseparable from the actions of the nobles and royalty. This was because these high-end entertainment venues never catered to the commoners. They only catered to the nobles. For the upper echelons of a country to be so decadent, it wasn't unreasonable for Old Man Qian and Cher to set their sights on the Heaven-Do Empire first. Looking at the distant group of palaces, that was the true core of the Heaven-Do imperial city. Shuai was right there. After turning a corner, the street was empty. Lu Yuan stopped in his tracks. A figure suddenly appeared. It was an old man in a grey robe. "Young Master Yuan, are we going to meet the young miss directly?" The old man appeared without a sound. His methods were so powerful that it made people speechless. However, Lu Yuan's expression remained calm. He was not surprised by the old man's appearance at all. "No, let's go to the martial spirit temple in Heaven-Do first. I need Sala's help," Lu Yuan said as he put on that familiar golden mask. "Yes," the grey-robed man replied. Lu Yuan felt that going to see Xiao Shuai empty-handed after not seeing her for more than a year wasn't something a man should do. It was more important to prepare the gift first. The grey-robed man followed closely behind Lu Yuan, and the two of them walked towards the martial spirit temple together. This black-robed man was called the Frenzy Rhino Douluo. His martial soul was the Herculean Rhino. It was considered a high-grade martial soul, and could barely be considered a top-grade martial soul. He was almost 100 years old this year and was a rank 93 titled Douluo. However, his potential had been exhausted, and he would probably be stuck at this level for the rest of his life. The Frenzy Rhino Douluo was not outstanding among the many elders of the Martial Spirit Palace. He was originally a Soul Douluo who did not have the opportunity to become a titled Douluo. After that, he joined the Martial Soul Hall in order to become a titled Douluo. Back then, the Golden Alligator Douluo pitted him and helped him. Only then did he become a titled Douluo. Therefore, the Frenzied Rhino Douluo had always followed the Golden Alligator Douluo's lead. He also only listened to the Elder Palace's orders. As he had always been in the Martial Spirit City, most people outside did not know that he had joined the Martial Spirit Palace and had become a titled Douluo. It was also because of this that Lu Yuan brought him along. If it were anyone else, his identity might be exposed, but the Frenzy Rhino Douluo would not. Perhaps it was because Lu Yuan was the successor of the Golden Crocodile, and he also had the Angel's Token, so the Frenzy Rhino Douluo was very respectful towards Lu Yuan. Martial Spirit Temple. Sarkis looked at the young man in front of him with a respectful expression. There were only 3 people in the huge temple, Lu Yuan and the Frenzy Rhino Douluo. Lu Yuan removed the mask on his face. Although Sarkis was blinded by greed, he was still loyal to the Martial Spirit Palace, and would not expose his identity. Sarkis looked at the young man in front of him with a respectful expression, and asked, "Young Master Yuan, do you have something that you need me to do?" It wasn't that Sarkis was trying to curry favor with Tang Wulin. Instead, it was just that the young man before him was far too extraordinary. He was the disciple of the current Supreme Pontiff, and he was the successor of the Golden Alligator Douluo. Furthermore, he possessed the Great Deacon's angelic badge. How could Sarkis not be moved by such a young man? Furthermore, there were rumors among the higher-ups of the Martial Spirit City that this young man was extremely talented, and had the support of both the Supreme Pontiff and the Elder Palace. It was very likely that he would become the next holy disciple in the future. Sarkis felt that he had to cling on to such a thick thigh. Furthermore, this young man had a bona fide titled Douluo backing him up, while Sarkis was only a rank 89 Sol Douluo. He couldn't afford to offend him at all. Lu Yuan looked at Sarkis in front of him with a cold expression and a cold aura. Apart from his women and his family, he almost always had this cold expression on his face. "There are two things that I need your help with," Lu Yuan said softly. "Please tell me, young Master Yuan." A gentle look flashed across Lu Yuan's eyes as if he had thought of something. However, his voice was still cold. "First, I want you to inform all the martial soul palace branches in the Heaven Do Empire to keep a close eye on a female soul master called Zhu Zhuqing, and provide her with help when she needs it. Do as she asks. Remember, it's any request." The Heaven Do Martial Soul Palace was the highest existence in the Heaven Do Empire, and it was in charge of all the martial soul palace branches in the Heaven Do Empire. With Sarkis' methods, he could pass down this order to all the branches in the Heaven Do Empire in the shortest time possible. Of course, it was not just the Heaven Do Empire, it was the same for the Star Luo Empire. Lu Yuan had already sent a letter, and Osfa should receive this news soon. Zhuqing, I've really gone to great lengths for you." Since Zhu Zhuqing wanted to train alone, he naturally wouldn't stop her. However, he had to do his best to ensure her safety. "Yes, young Master Yuan. I understand. What's the second thing?" Even though Sarkis really wanted to know the relationship between this female soul master called Zhu Zhuqing and young Master Yuan, he knew that this wasn't something that he should be asking about. Chapter 162. For someone like Sarkis, who had been around for decades, they knew exactly what they had to do. "The second thing is easy to do. Do you know any good tailors? I want to order some clothes." "Order clothes? That's easy." Sarkis thought it would be something difficult. He didn't expect it to be just a few clothes. This was a piece of cake for him. "What material do you want, young Master Yuan? Gold silk or cloud silk?" Sarkis asked. Lu Yuan flipped his palm and a snow-white pelt that was about 3 meters long and 2 meters wide appeared in his hand. It was a complete piece of snow-white fur. "This is it. I want to use it to make a few fox fur coats for women. I want them to be as beautiful as possible," Lu Yuan said. "This fur." Sarkis looked at the pure white fur in front of him, and a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. "Young Master Yuan, if I'm not wrong, this seems to be the fur of a dream demon fox. It's quite old, isn't it?" Lu Yuan glanced at Sarkis and said, "This is the fur of a dream demon fox that's close to 50,000 years old. It's very complete, and it's quite precious. That's why I want to make a few fox fur coats. I'm sure Bishop Sarkis knows some talents in this field, right?" Lu Yuan didn't believe that Sarkis, the palace master of the Heaven Do Empire's martial spirit temple, couldn't find a tailor who could make fox fur coats. "Don't worry, young Master Yuan. Leave it to me." Sarkis immediately agreed. To him, this was just a small matter. "That's good." Lu Yuan nodded. He put on his mask, turned around, and got ready to leave. "When do you want it, young Master Yuan? I'll send someone to deliver it to you," Sarkis asked as he looked at Lu Yuan's back. 3 days later. "Send someone to deliver it to the biggest Star Blue hotel in Heaven Do City. I'm staying there," Lu Yuan said. "Yes," Sarkis said respectfully. "Young Master, where are we going now?" "Directly to the Star Blue Hotel." After leaving the martial spirit temple and walking for some time, Lu Yuan removed his mask. At this moment, the frenzy rhino Douluo, who had been hiding all this while, suddenly asked, "There's no rush for now. Let's take a stroll around Heaven Do City first and get a better understanding of the city," Lu Yuan said. Lu Yuan liked to be prepared. Since this was his first time in Heaven Do City, he had to be clear about the basic situation. Although Lu Yuan had already learned some things from Sarkis, he still wanted to see the rest with his own eyes. Lu Yuan toured all of the more famous places in Heaven-do City with the frenzy rhino Douluo, and 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Is this the fox fur coat made from the fur of the fantasy fox? Looking at the exquisite fox fur coat in front of him, Lu Yuan's eyes revealed a trace of satisfaction. There were 4 fox fur coats, 3 for women and 1 for men. That fellow, Sarkis, had sharp eyes and actually made a set for him. However, 3 for women didn't seem to be enough. 1 for Chihiro Snow, 1 for Zhu Zhuqing, 1 for Hu Lena, and 1 for his teacher. Lu Yuan thought for a moment and eliminated Hu Lena. After all, he had already given her the most precious skull. She didn't have a share of the remaining fox fur coats. Lu Yuan chose the most extravagant of the 3 fox fur coats. There were even exquisite golden embroidery on it. This kind of luxurious design was most suitable for Xiao Shui, because her aura was inclined towards holiness. As for the remaining 2, he could give them to Zhuqing and his teacher. Lu Yuan distributed them and put the remaining 2 into his astral ring. He planned to give them to the 2 of them in the future. Now, he could go and see Xiao Shui, Heaven-do Imperial City, Crown Prince's residence. Chihiro Snow, who was disguised as Shui Qinghe, sat alone in the study of the Crown Prince's residence. He held a pen in his hand and was going through some documents. As his performance became better and better, the Snowy Night Emperor also slowly handed over some administrative matters to him. It seemed like he was testing his abilities. However, this was a good thing. The more this was the case, the more important the Snowy Night Emperor was to him. His position as the Crown Prince was also becoming more and more secure. When the time was right, he would poison the Snowy Night Emperor to death. Then, he would become the new emperor of the Heaven-do Empire. He would be able to help the Martial Soul Palace control the vast Heaven-do Empire without any effort. When he attacked the Sionra Empire, he would be able to unify the entire continent. Suddenly, a figure flashed, and an elder appeared in front of Chihiro Snow. When he saw this elder, Chihiro Snow's expression turned serious. He said, "What's the matter?" This elder was one of the 2 titled Douluo who had been guarding Chihiro Snow, the snake spear Douluo. There's a letter from the head consecrator. There were only 2 people in the study, Chihiro Snow and the snake spear Douluo. Hence, they didn't have any reservations. Oh. Chihiro Snow raised his eyebrows and said, "Let me take a look." The snake spear Douluo took out an envelope and passed it to Chihiro Snow. Chihiro Snow opened the letter and read it carefully. His expression changed a little. He softly said, "So he's here." There was a tinge of nostalgia and joy in his voice. "Who's here?" the snake spear Douluo asked. "Who else can it be? It's that rascal with the surname Lu." As Chihiro Snow spoke, his joyful expression became a little annoyed. He lowered his voice and said, "According to grandfather's letter, this fellow should have reached the Heaven-do Empire 3 days ago. However, he hasn't come to see me yet. Then what has he been doing these 3 days?" Chihiro Snow was a little angry. They hadn't seen each other for almost 2 years. Doesn't this fellow miss me at all? He's been in the Heaven-do Imperial City for 3 days, but he hasn't come to see me. How ridiculous. Is it young Master Yuan? The snake spear Douluo reacted. He recalled the young man who was also extremely talented. His young master had always been thinking about him. It's that rascal. Chihiro Snow gritted his teeth. When I see him one day, I'll teach him a lesson. Seeing how furious Chen Runshua was, the snake spear Douluo hurriedly maintained his silence. This wasn't something that he could interfere in. However, seeing how furious his mistress was, Mr. Yuan was going to be in trouble. Young Master Yuan, young Master Yuan. Good luck. The snake spear Douluo lowered his head. At this moment, another elder in black walked in. It was another titled Douluo, the thorny pufferfish Douluo. "Crown Prince, there's an old friend outside who wishes to see you." "An old friend?" Chihiro Snow frowned. However, he immediately thought of something. He gritted his teeth and said, "Let him in." Lu Yuan wore a golden mask and strode into the study. He looked at Chihiro Snow, who was pretending to be Shui Qinghe. He gently removed his mask and revealed a smile on his fairy-like face. Cher, long time no see. Chapter 163. Cher, it's been a long time. A warm smile appeared on Lu Yuan's cold face. After more than a year, he finally saw the Xiao Shui that he had been missing for so long. Yes, it has indeed been a long time. Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan and said with a fake smile. Seeing this, the two titled Douluo, Snake Spear and Thorny Pufferfish, seemed to feel that something was wrong. They left the room and closed the door. Only Lu Yuan and Chihiro Snow were left in the large study room. Lu Yuan stared at Chihiro Snow. Currently, Chihiro Snow was still wearing Xueqinghe's appearance. Her aura was quite refined, but in Lu Yuan's eyes, it was a little strange. He didn't want to see a man's face. Wasn't Xiao Shui's beauty more pleasing to the eye? Cher, don't tell me you're going to see me with this appearance, Lu Yuan said. Haha. Hearing this, Chihiro Snow laughed coldly. Her voice was crisp, but when paired with that man's face, the strange feeling was even stronger. Qian Renshue's jade-like hand brushed across his face as if she had removed a mask. In an instant, the originally refined Xueqinghe had once again transformed into that devastatingly beautiful woman, Qian Renshu. Lu Yuan carefully sized up Chihiro Snow's beautiful face. Beautiful golden hair, flawless snow-white skin, a high-nose bridge, and two slender willow-leaf eyebrows added a heroic aura. Her angelic face didn't seem to belong to this world, and that high and mighty divine aura added a bit of temptation. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Among all the beauties Lu Yuan had seen, Chihiro Snow's beauty was undeniably the best. Her beauty was enough to topple the world. Seeing Lu Yuan staring at her in a daze, Chihiro Snow smiled and asked, "Am I beautiful?" "It's so beautiful that it's simply out of this world," Lu Yuan exclaimed in admiration. "Is she really that beautiful?" Chihiro Snow asked with a sweet smile. "Well, I never lie," Lu Yuan said solemnly. "Really?" Chihiro Snow walked slowly towards Lu Yuan. He realized that Lu Yuan, who was half a head shorter than him, had already caught up with him. It had only been a little more than a year. Was Lu Yuan injected with hormones? Looking at Lu Yuan's fairy-like face, Chihiro Snow's beautiful eyes slightly blinked. After not seeing him for more than a year, this stinking fellow had grown even more handsome. Moreover, his temperament was otherworldly. Among all the people that Chihiro Snow had met, no one could compare to him. Cher. Lu Yuan called out softly as he looked at Chihiro Snow, who was only 2 steps away from him, and smelled Chihiro Snow's enchanting fragrance. Seeing the deep affection in Lu Yuan's eyes, Chihiro Snow's originally somewhat angry mood calmed down a lot. However, she still hadn't forgotten about that matter. Qian Renshue stretched out her jade-like hand and gently adjusted Lu Yuan's collar. She casually asked, "When did you come to Heaven Do Imperial City?" Her tone was very casual, as if she was just asking casually. Lu Yuan didn't suspect anything. 3 days ago. Oh. Chihiro Snow gritted her teeth and asked again, "Then what have you been doing for the past 3 days?" Lu Yuan casually said, "Nothing much, just strolling around Heaven Do City." This wasn't a lie. He had indeed been strolling around Heaven Do Imperial City to understand the situation. "Is that so?" Chihiro Snow clenched her fists. "Yes." Lu Yuan nodded. "Since that's the case, then die, you stinking bastard." Chihiro Snow suddenly exploded and punched Lu Yuan in the face. The sudden attack from Chihiro Snow caused Lu Yuan to stumble back a few steps, and a bruise appeared on his face. Fortunately, it was just a simple punch, and Chihiro Snow hadn't used her angelic soul power. "Cher, what are you doing?" Suddenly being punched in the face by Chihiro Snow, Lu Yuan was stunned, and a trace of anger rose in his heart. However, the person in front of him was Chihiro Snow, so Lu Yuan controlled his temper. If anyone else had dared to treat him like this, he would have already slapped them. "What am I doing?" "Young Master Lu, you've had a lot of fun these past 3 days. Why are you looking for me? Haven't you forgotten about me long ago?" Chihiro Snow's voice carried a trace of grievance. She was Chihiro Snow, the holy maiden of the martial soul palace. She possessed a divine-ranked martial soul, the six-winged angel, and her innate soul power was at rank 20. She was also the chosen one of the angel gods. She was truly a proud daughter of the heavens. For the man in front of her, she had begged her grandfather for the golden crocodile to accept him as a disciple. Now, for the sake of the martial soul palace's grand plan, she had hidden herself in the Heaven Do Empire alone and suffered a lot. But this man in front of her hadn't seen her for more than a year, and the first thing he did after coming to Heaven Do Imperial City was to take a stroll around the city and completely forget about her. Who was the one who had gone too far? Hearing this, Lu Yuan's anger subsided. He understood what Chihiro Snow was angry about. Share. Lu Yuan took 2 steps forward and gently grasped Chihiro Snow's jade-like hand. For me. Chihiro Snow snorted and pulled her hand away. She turned around and ignored Lu Yuan. Lu Yuan blinked and directly pulled Chihiro Snow into his embrace. Ah! Chihiro Snow cried out in alarm and began to struggle vigorously. However, Lu Yuan's current strength was so great that he could contend against a Soul Emperor. In terms of strength, Lu Yuan might not be a match for Chihiro Snow, but in terms of strength, Chihiro Snow couldn't break free without her martial soul possessing her body. Furthermore, strength had never been Chihiro Snow's strong suit. Share, listen to my explanation. Lu Yuan rested his chin on Chihiro Snow's shoulder. His hot breath hit Chihiro Snow's ear as he spoke. Chihiro Snow's delicate body trembled and she stopped struggling. Her voice was cold as she said, "Speak, I want to see what you have to say." Share, I've been here for 3 days and didn't come to see you because I wanted to prepare a gift for you. Furthermore, I wasn't here to play these 3 days. I was here to understand the basic situation of the Heaven Do Empire. I've been wanting to see you for a long time, but I couldn't come empty-handed, Lu Yuan said. After hearing Lu Yuan's explanation, Chihiro Snow slowly calmed down and asked Lu Yuan, "Really? Of course it's true, look." Lu Yuan let go of Chihiro Snow and waved his hand. An exquisite fox fur coat appeared in his hand. This is. Seeing the fox fur coat in Lu Yuan's hand, Chihiro Snow's expression revealed a trace of surprise. She was also someone who knew her stuff. This is made from the fox fur of a dream demon fox, and it's not young either. It's at least 10,000 years old. Only fox fur over 10,000 years old can have such quality. Do you like it? Lu Yuan asked. Yes. After hesitating for a moment, Chihiro Snow nodded. Let me put it on for you. Lu Yuan shook off the fox fur coat and draped it over Chihiro Snow's body. In an instant, with the snow-white fox fur coat as a foil, Chihiro Snow appeared even more alluring. Beautiful. Lu Yuan looked at it from head to toe and sighed softly. Really? Chihiro Snow tugged at the fox fur coat on her body. The soft fur was exceptionally comfortable to touch. Chapter 164. Yes, it's true. Lu Yuan nodded his head in satisfaction as he looked at Qian Renxue, who was wearing a white fox fur coat with golden edges. Indeed, little Shue's original peerless beauty had become even more beautiful after wearing the fox fur coat. You only know how to say nice things to make me happy. Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan reproachfully, but there was an unconcealable joy in her tone. The reproach in her heart towards Lu Yuan had long disappeared. Seeing that Chihiro Snow's anger had dissipated, Lu Yuan revealed a trace of a smile. You only know how to smile foolishly. Did I hurt you? Chihiro Snow touched the bruise on the left side of Lu Yuan's face with a trace of concern on her charming face. It's fine, it doesn't hurt at all. Lu Yuan grabbed Chihiro Snow's jade hand and held it in his palm. Having her hand held by Lu Yuan, Chihiro Snow's eyebrows trembled and she said angrily, I haven't seen you for more than a year, and you're still the same, only knowing how to touch me. Chihiro Snow said that, but she didn't withdraw her hand. Lu Yuan naturally knew Chihiro Snow's temperament. She was a typical tsundere, obviously very happy in her heart, but deliberately pretending to be disgusted. Ah, woman. Of course, Lu Yuan wasn't stupid enough to say his own thoughts. Holding Chihiro Snow's jade hand, His left hand slowly stroked Chihiro Snow's cheek. Little Snow's beauty is still so flawless, as expected of the woman I have chosen in my life. He, Lu Yuan, was a face lover. This was something he had never denied. Chihiro Snow felt Lu Yuan's hand stroking her face, and there was a trace of shyness in her heart. She had never been so intimate with a man before. This was the first time someone had touched her cheek like this. This feeling was very strange, causing her body to stiffen. However, she didn't know why, but there was an indescribable joy in her heart. Chihiro Snow's beautiful eyes stared at Lu Yuan. She really didn't expect this guy to be so bold. After more than a year, he dared to touch her cheek when they met for the first time. Chihiro Snow wanted to stop him, but she didn't know why. Every time she wanted to take action, Lu Yuan's affectionate eyes made her give up her original idea. Forget it, I'll just let him touch me. I'll just treat it as an apology for hitting him just now, Chihiro Snow thought to himself. Thinking of this, Chihiro Snow was willing to enjoy the subtle feeling of Lu Yuan's palm touching her cheek. Lu Yuan gently caressed Chihiro Snow's cheek. Looking at Chihiro Snow's alluring red lips, his heart stirred, and he leaned forward. Woo! Lu Yuan's lips were blocked by Chihiro Snow's jade-like hands. Chihiro Snow glared at Lu Yuan with angry eyes. Stinky guy, don't push your luck. Hearing this, Lu Yuan laughed and said, Xiao Shui, don't be so stingy. It's just a kiss. Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Chihiro Snow helplessly rolled her eyes. This guy in front of her clearly had such a cold face. Why was he so shameless? He actually dared to say such word. However, Lu Yuan's actions made the unfamiliarity between the two of them after not seeing each other for more than a year disappear. The tacit understanding of the past seemed to have returned. Okay, stop fooling around. Chihiro Snow patted Lu Yuan's hand and said, let's talk about some serious matters. What serious matters? Let's talk about feelings first. Lu Yuan said. Chihiro Snow's beautiful eyes widened slightly. Sigh. Boring. Lu Yuan sighed and sat down on Chihiro Snow's chair. He didn't mind Chihiro Snow's attitude. Seeing Lu Yuan's actions, Chihiro Snow's face darkened. Get up, this is my seat. It's okay. Isn't your seat my seat? Lu Yuan laughed and moved his butt, revealing half of his seat, and said, why don't we sit together? Or. Lu Yuan blinked and said, you can sit on my lap. I don't mind. Hearing this, Chihiro Snow was speechless. She looked at Lu Yuan strangely. Of course I know you don't mind. I think you can't wait for it. We haven't seen each other for more than a year. How did this guy's personality become so shameless? Chihiro Snow was a little puzzled. Looking at Chen Runshua's eyes that seemed to have become a little angry, Lu Yuan also knew that he should not continue to make trouble. Xiao Shui's skin was not much thicker than Zhu Qing's. He could not treat her like how he treated his senior sister. Teasing her was enough. If he continued, Xiao Shui would really get angry. Okay, let's talk about serious matters. Lu Yuan pulled Chihiro Snow's hand. His face immediately became serious, and his Pharaoh-like face was full of arrogance and coldness. This man, how did he change his face so quickly? Chihiro Snow was stunned. Lu Yuan's change was too big. Cher, how are you doing in the Heaven Do Empire? When I came, I did some research. You have a pretty good reputation outside. It seems like you've achieved a lot after hiding for more than a year. Lu Yuan looked into Chihiro Snow's eyes. Xiao Shui had been alone for more than a year. She must have suffered a lot. Chihiro Snow said, it's okay. I've gained a firm foothold in the past year. The Snow Knight Emperor has also gradually trusted me and slowly handed over government affairs to me. However, there are still people in the imperial court who oppose me. She didn't hide anything from Lu Yuan. In her heart, Lu Yuan was worthy of her trust. He was the second person she could trust besides Sendryu. It's Prince Xuexing, right? Lu Yuan said softly. Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan in surprise and said, yes, for more than a year, I've used some methods to get rid of the second prince and the third prince. Now, among the sons of the Snow Knight Emperor, other than me, who is pretending to be Xue Qinghe, there's only that good-for-nothing, Xue Beng. Perhaps it's because I acted too hastily and Prince Xuexing discovered something, so he's been opposing me in the imperial court. However, now that I've gained the support of most of the officials, I don't have to worry about Prince Xuexing. However, this guy is a little disgusting. He's always finding trouble for me. However, I can't do anything to him. Otherwise, I'll give myself away and ruin my plan, Chihiro Snow said. Her tone was filled with disgust for Prince Xuexing. Is that so? Lu Yuan didn't say anything. He gently held Chihiro Snow's hand and said, "You can't touch Prince Xuexing for now. After all, he's the younger brother of the Snow Knight Emperor. Furthermore, he's not on good terms with you. If he's in danger, you'll be the first suspect. What you're doing now is correct." Chihiro Snow nodded her head lightly. After a moment of silence, Lu Yuan suddenly asked, "Cher, what do you think of Avalanche?" Avalanche wasn't a simple person. In the original novel, he had always been hiding. In fact, he had some schemes in his heart. It was because he knew that his two brothers were dead that he pretended to be a good-for-nothing. In fact, he had secretly allied with Prince Xuexing. He had always been in hiding, waiting for an opportunity to overthrow Xue Qinghe. In the original novel, Shrek's 7 monsters were expelled from the Heaven Do Academy because of Avalanche. Chapter 165. One had to know that the 3 education committee members of the Heaven Do Imperial Academy were all Xue Qinghe's people and supported the Crown Prince. The reason why Avalanche brought Prince Xuexing along was to prevent Xue Qinghe from recruiting Shrek's 7 monsters. Once Shrek's 7 monsters were expelled from Heaven Do, they would naturally direct their anger towards the Heaven Do Imperial Academy. This was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Avalanche. Lu Yuan's words caused Chihiro Snow to be stunned. However, a trace of disdain flashed across Chihiro Snow's eyes as he said, "Avalanche is a complete hedonistic son of a wealthy family. He is not presentable." "Is that so? Cher, is this how you view him?" Lu Yuan played with Chihiro Snow's snow-white hair as he asked. "Hey!" Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Chihiro Snow furrowed his brows and said, "Is there something wrong?" Lu Yuan smiled mysteriously and said, "Avalanche is not as simple as you think. He is very scheming. The things that you said you understood were just a pretense. Think carefully, when did Avalanche's reputation as a hedonistic son start to spread? If I am not wrong, it should be not long after the death of the 2nd and 3rd princes. The reputation of Avalanche as a hedonistic son began to spread within the Heaven Do Empire." Hearing this, Chihiro Snow was shocked and said, "If you didn't mention it, I wouldn't have thought about it. Now that you mention it, I do remember. Indeed, not long after I sent people to kill the 3rd prince, the entire Heaven Do Imperial City started to spread news of Avalanche's hedonistic name. Furthermore, the speed at which it spread was a little strange. I suspect that someone is purposely spreading it." Bingo. Lu Yuan smiled. As expected of Xue, to be able to understand with just a hint. Avalanche had disguised himself, and even abandoned himself, all to divert your attention. In truth, he had long allied with Prince Xuexing, and even in the imperial court, there are some people standing on their side. It's just that they are biding their time, and you have not discovered it yet. I see. I was wondering how a prince could fall to such a state. So it was all a pretense. Chihiro Snow was enlightened and seemed to have understood something. However, she quickly turned her gaze towards Lu Yuan and said, "I've been here for more than a year and didn't notice anything strange about Avalanche. You've only been here for 3 days. How do you know so clearly?" Chihiro Snow stared intently at Lu Yuan. "Huh?" Lu Yuan pointed at his own head and said with a smile, "Of course it's because of my incomparably smart brain, Narcissus." Chihiro Snow pursed her lips and said, "Hurry up and tell me the reason." "Haha." Lu Yuan chuckled and said, "These things were actually deduced by me over the past 3 days. I went to a few of the more famous entertainment venues in Heaven Do City, but coincidentally, I saw Prince Xuexing every time, almost every time, at different places. There are different people around Prince Shuexing. Moreover, all of them are wearing luxurious clothes and have the majestic aura of someone in a high position. It's fine if it's once, but it's not right if it's always like this. Furthermore, I know that Prince Shuexing's relationship with you isn't good, so I asked the frenzy rhino Douluo to pay attention to him. Don't you think it was a coincidence that I discovered him discussing something with Avalanche? Avalanche didn't act like a spoiled brat. Lu Yuan chuckled and said, with these things, everything will be clear after some deduction. That's why I didn't waste 3 days in the Heaven Do Empire for nothing. It's rare to see you, so I have to give you a surprise. Do you think the name list of the high-ranking officials who are in contact with Prince Shuexing is a surprise? This time, Lu Yuan was fully prepared. The fox fur coat was only a small gift, but the name list was a big gift. Lu Yuan was sure that Chihiro Snow would like it. What did you say? Chihiro Snow's voice rose a few pitches and became a little shrill. There was a rare look of surprise on her face. If she had this name list, she would be able to control all of Prince Shuexing and Avalanche's forces. This way, she could use targeted methods to eliminate Prince Shuexing's henchmen one by one. This was very important for her to consolidate her position. Then what about the name list? Chihiro Snow asked. Lu Yuan looked at Chen Runxue with a half-smile and said, Shuer, I've specially prepared this gift for you. Don't tell me you're not going to give me anything in return. Chihiro Snow glared at him and said, then what do you want? Lu Yuan pointed to his own lips. Chihiro Snow's face instantly turned red. She said angrily, don't go overboard. At most, I don't want the nameless. How could Chihiro Snow take the initiative to kiss Lu Yuan? If Lu Yuan kissed her, she could pretend that she didn't mind. But if he wanted her to take the initiative, she couldn't do it. All right, I won't tease you anymore. Lu Yuan waved his hand, and a name list appeared in his hand. He passed it to Chihiro Snow. Lu Yuan said, the names in the name list might be a little incomplete. Some of them were personally selected by the frenzy rhino Douluo. They are all big fish. I used the power of the martial soul temple to investigate the rest. As I was afraid of alerting them, my investigation might not be detailed enough. He had no choice. After all, Prince Shuexing was still a prince. It wasn't easy to investigate his people. If he wasn't careful, he might alert them. Hence, Lu Yuan was very careful. Some of them were hidden very well, but he didn't manage to dig them out. Chihiro Snow took the name list and looked at it carefully. He said, indeed, they are all ministers who don't get along well with me. Rascal, you've helped me a lot this time. Is that so? Lu Yuan asked. Yes. Chihiro Snow nodded and said, with this name list, I know who my enemies are. It'll be easier for me to plan from now on. It's good that I was able to help you. Lu Yuan stood up and leaned very close to Chihiro Snow. Chihiro Snow looked at Lu Yuan in front of him and said, what are you planning to do in Martial Soul City this time? Are you coming to Heaven Do City to help me? Chihiro Snow's voice carried a trace of anticipation. It was indeed difficult for her to support herself, and she was very lonely. If Lu Yuan were to help her, it would be much easier for her. Lu Yuan said, helping you is one thing. I also have my own plans. Can you tell me about it? Chihiro Snow was a little curious. Come closer, and I'll tell you. Lu Yuan smiled and deliberately lowered his voice, as if he was afraid of being discovered. Chihiro Snow was attracted by Lu Yuan's actions. He took a few more steps forward. At this time, Chihiro Snow and Lu Yuan were less than a foot apart. Lu Yuan's lips curled into a smile. It was as if his scheme had succeeded. He suddenly took a step forward, wrapped his arms around Chihiro Snow's waist, and sealed Chihiro Snow's red lips with his. Chihiro Snow's body suddenly stiffened after being ambushed by Lu Yuan. Chapter 166. Her red lips were suddenly sealed by Lu Yuan. Chihiro Snow's body suddenly stiffened. Chihiro Snow's eyes widened. She didn't expect this guy to be so bold. Lu Yuan's hands wrapped around Chihiro Snow's waist. Facing Chihiro Snow's shocked gaze, he became more and more engrossed in the kiss. From time to time, he drove Chihiro Snow's rhythm. To be honest, Lu Yuan had kissed a lot now, so he could be considered to have some experience. Under his lead, Chihiro Snow became more and more engrossed, her eyes blurred. Her body couldn't help but relax. Their lips were demanding each other. This was the first time Chihiro Snow felt this. After all, the first time she was kissed was more than a year ago, when she was sneakily attacked by Lu Yuan. However, it was just a simple contact. Although it was a little strange, she didn't have a deep understanding of it. But this time, Chihiro Snow really experienced the feeling of kissing. This feeling was really good. After a long time, their lips parted. Lu Yuan was still holding Chihiro Snow's waist, looking at Chihiro Snow with gentle eyes. The feeling of kissing Chihiro Snow was the best. Although she was very inexperienced, the satisfaction that Chihiro Snow gave him was incomparable to anyone else. This was because the lovely person in front of him was the person he loved the most in his heart. Only Chen Renshue was the woman that he had decided that he must pursue in this life. Suddenly being attacked by Lu Yuan and being intoxicated by it, Chihiro Snow's beautiful face was also a little red. Looking at Lu Yuan, who was leaning his forehead against hers and looking into her eyes, Chihiro Snow bit her red lips and softly spat out a few words, "Lecha." Looking at Chihiro Snow's red cheeks, Lu Yuan couldn't help but kiss her red lips and said, "Cher, you're so beautiful." After being kissed by Lu Yuan again, Chihiro Snow raised her eyebrows and gritted her teeth. "Surnamed Lu, you're still not done?" "Okay, I was wrong," Lu Yuan said very impolitely. "Me." Chihiro Snow wrinkled her nose, but she didn't feel angry. To be honest, this guy's face was really handsome. Even she couldn't resist it. Lu Yuan's shadow was in Chihiro Snow's heart since more than a year ago. Lu Yuan was the first person besides Sendryu who was so close to her and often cared for her. Chihiro Snow lacked love since she was young. She was born with a high status, and no one dared to be friends with her. Only Lu Yuan met her every day in the plum garden. It made her feel the love in her heart again. This feeling was completely different from the feeling Sendryu gave her. Every time Lu Yuan looked at her affectionately, Chihiro Snow's heart would feel sweet. She always knew that Lu Yuan liked her, because Lu Yuan never hid his feelings for her. She, Chihiro Snow, wasn't stupid. Instead, she was a clever girl. How could she not notice this kind of affection? Lu Yuan was also very good-looking. His talent was also very few people who could compare to her. He was also very intelligent. After being together for a long time, how could Chihiro Snow not have a good impression of him? It was just that more than a year ago, Lu Yuan was still a little immature. He was half a head shorter than her, so Chihiro Snow took the initiative to suppress her feelings. However, the kiss that Lu Yuan gave her before she left awakened the feelings that she had been suppressing. This allowed Chen Renshue to face her feelings for Lu Yuan for the first time. However, it was a pity that Lu Yuan had gone to obtain his second soul ring when she was about to go on a mission. That was the last time the two of them met. Over the past year, Chihiro Snow had been hiding in the Heaven Do Empire by herself. Every day, she schemed against each other and eliminated her competitors. In fact, it was very tiring. There was no one by her side to help her or talk to her. Every time she was like this, she would think of the time when she and Lu Yuan could talk about anything. That feeling of being able to talk freely with someone was very good. Her feelings for Lu Yuan were slowly fermenting in this state. In fact, Lu Yuan was already in her heart for a long time. When she found out that Lu Yuan had come to Heaven Do, she was delighted. Then, when she saw that Lu Yuan had been strolling around Heaven Do City for 3 days without coming to see her, she was furious. That was because she was afraid that Lu Yuan no longer cared about her, so she was flustered. In fact, Chihiro Snow was a person who valued her feelings very much. When she saw Lu Yuan again, Chihiro Snow was actually quite surprised. In just over a year, Lu Yuan had changed a lot. Not only had he caught up to her in height, but he had even surpassed her. His appearance had also improved by a lot. His double pupils gave him a special kind of charm. His entire person seemed to be covered in a layer of mist. This man seemed to have matured and become more attractive. More importantly, the way Lu Yuan looked at her was the same as before. That affectionate gaze seemed to want to engrave her in his heart. Chihiro Snow heaved a sigh of relief. Then, she couldn't suppress the joy in her heart. When she found out that Lu Yuan had delayed for 3 days to prepare a gift for her, the resentment in her heart had completely disappeared. Feelings began to slowly surface in her heart. As she stared blankly at Lu Yuan, Chihiro Snow's thoughts churned. The current Lu Yuan was quite mature, and his charm was growing. It was becoming harder and harder for her to control her feelings. In fact, she didn't seem to want to control her feelings anymore. Furthermore, this guy was really good to her. He was still as concerned about her as before. He had only been in the Heaven Do Empire for 3 days, and he had already helped her so much. That name list was going to be very useful for her future plans. However, this guy's personality seemed to have become even more shameless. He actually wanted her to kiss him. She was a girl, so how could she take the initiative? However, this guy was really bold. If she didn't kiss him, he would take the initiative to sneak up on her. However, this kind of kiss felt really good. Lu Yuan looked at Chihiro Snow, who was in a daze. He smiled and said, "Cher, what are you thinking about?" After being interrupted by Lu Yuan, Chihiro Snow reacted. She glared at Lu Yuan and said, "What does it have to do with you?" Lu Yuan was amused by Chihiro Snow's charming glare. Seeing Cher like this, it seemed like she was thinking about something embarrassing and was too embarrassed to say it. Therefore, she was pretending to be arrogant. Lu Yuan turned his gaze and stared at Chihiro Snow's red lips. He had to admit that Cher's red lips tasted really good. They were sweet. Sensing Lu Yuan's gaze, Chihiro Snow raised her guard. "Lu Yuan, don't mess around." Lu Yuan sighed and said, "Actually, I didn't want to do this." "Who asked you to be so beautiful?" Chihiro Snow was delighted when she heard this. He was praising her for her beauty. However, her expression didn't change at all. She said, "Don't try to trick me. You're just trying to take advantage of me." As she spoke, her beautiful eyes stared straight at Lu Yuan. Chapter 167. Lu Yuan smiled and said, "That's right, I like to take advantage of you." As he spoke, he suddenly tightened his arms around Chihiro Snow's waist. Chihiro Snow cried out in surprise and was instantly pulled into Lu Yuan's arms. "Lu, let go of me." Chihiro Snow struggled, but she didn't use much strength. Lu Yuan still held Chihiro Snow tightly in his arms. Chihiro Snow was very tall. Even now, she was close to 1.8 meters, almost the same height as Lu Yuan. Speaking of which, ever since the Golden Dragon bloodline awakened, Lu Yuan's height had been increasing rapidly. He was now more than 1.7 meters, just a little bit more and he would be 1.8 meters. However, he still had a month to go before he turned 10 years old. Hugging Chihiro Snow now was much better than it was a year ago. It was much more convenient for him to kiss her. At least he didn't have to tiptoe. "Cher, let me hug you for a while. We haven't seen each other for more than a year. I want to smell your scent." Lu Yuan rested his chin on Chihiro Snow's shoulder. The side of their faces slightly rubbed against each other. Chihiro Snow pursed her red lips and immediately gave up struggling. She let Lu Yuan hug her and felt the warmth of the man in front of her. What an enemy! Chihiro Snow sighed softly in her heart. Her arrogance and holiness were instantly smashed into pieces when she met Lu Yuan. She could only let him take advantage of her. Most importantly, she didn't feel disgusted in her heart. As Chihiro Snow thought about it, she suddenly realized that this guy hugging her was also ordinary. He was obviously arrogant and cold, but he liked to act shamelessly in front of her. He liked to take advantage of her for no reason. However, he was very concerned about her and doted on her a lot. Thinking of this, Chihiro Snow felt much better. So be it. Anyway, it would be very difficult to get rid of this guy in this lifetime. Moreover, Chihiro Snow glanced around. It seemed that there were only the two of them here, so he wasn't that shy. Lu Yuan greedily sucked on Chihiro Snow's delicate fragrance, hugging Chihiro Snow's waist. His heart was calm. The person in his arms was his entire world, the person he cherished the most in his life. You haven't answered me yet. What do you want to do this time? Are you here to help me? And what are you planning? Chihiro Snow's voice rang in Lu Yuan's ears. Lu Yuan's mouth twitched helplessly. Xiao Shui, can't we talk about love? Why do you always talk about such boring business? Are you going to say it or not? Chihiro Snow lowered her voice and pinched Lu Yuan's waist. Lu Yuan's body trembled. His forehead was full of black lines. Why do you girls like to use this trick? Zhu Qing is like this, Cher is also like this. Ari, senior sister, is still the most obedient. I wonder what senior sister is doing now. Is she seriously practicing the Phoenix dance of the 6 illusions? In the blink of an eye, Lu Yuan's thoughts drifted to Helena. Hugging Chihiro Snow in his arms, thinking of Helena in his mind. Amazing. Seeing that Lu Yuan was silent, Chihiro Snow frowned and urged, "Hey, I'm talking to you." Hearing this, Lu Yuan immediately came back to his senses. What should he do? How could he be distracted? If Xiao Shui knew that he was thinking of senior sister when he was hugging her, then he would probably come in vertically and leave horizontally today. He immediately said, "Actually, the main reason I came out this time was to train myself. Of course, helping you is also one of the reasons." "Oh." Chihiro Snow replied indifferently. She was not very interested. She thought that Lu Yuan would stay by her side to help her. Now, it seemed that was not the case. "Cher." Lu Yuan called softly. "Don't call me, I'm not in a good mood." Chihiro Snow replied sullenly. Lu Yuan suddenly understood. He knew that Xiao Shui must be feeling uncomfortable in her heart. "Cher, listen to me." Lu Yuan felt that he had to explain himself. "Speak." Chihiro Snow said. "Cher, I have my reasons for not staying by your side. Furthermore, I really can't stay with you for long," Lu Yuan said. His identity might be hidden for a while, but it would be exposed one day. When that happened, it might affect Cher, and affect Cher's concealment. Concealing his identity and staying by Cher's side was not a good idea either. He still had to divide Shrek's 7 monsters, set up his own goals, establish his own power, and increase his strength. He couldn't hide forever. This was not in line with his character. His Tao was to constantly improve himself through experience. As for Shue'er's side, as long as Shue'er herself paid more attention, and he helped her get rid of a few stumbling blocks, the plan would progress smoothly. Lu Yuan simplified his goals to Chihiro Snow. Chihiro Snow stared at Lu Yuan for a long time before sighing softly. Yes, with this guy's character, how could he be willing to hide his identity forever? The Golden Dragon's pride had already seeped into his bones. Wearing a mask to hide his identity was probably the most he could accept. If he had to disguise himself as someone else, he would not be able to accept it. However, if this guy didn't stay, she would still be alone. This was a terrible feeling, especially after experiencing Lu Yuan's care and concern. After tasting the feeling of having Lu Yuan by her side, she hated the feeling of hiding by herself even more. "Cher, listen to me. In the entire Heaven Do Empire, there are 2 things that we must seize," Lu Yuan said. "What is it?" Chihiro Snow asked. "One is the Heaven Do Empire's military power. The other is the wealth of the 7 treasures glazed sect," Lu Yuan said. Controlling the Heaven Do Empire's military power was equivalent to controlling a 1,000,000-strong army. Although the Martial Soul Palace controlled most of the world's Soul Masters, it lacked a direct army. After all, Soul Masters were the minority. Ordinary citizens were the foundation of the Douluo continent. The strength of a 1,000,000-strong army was not to be underestimated. The 7 Treasures Glazed sect was the wealthiest sect in the world. It could be said that their wealth was comparable to that of a country. Lu Yuan had once thought that the 7 Treasures Glazed sect's wealth would not surpass the Martial Soul Palace's. Later on, he found out that the Seven Treasures glazed sect was truly inhumane. They were truly rich. It was not a lie to say that their wealth was comparable to that of a country. Wealth was also a form of strength. With wealth, one could have the best weapons, the best equipment, and the most abundant food. This was extremely important in war. After all, war was a war that tested the strength of a country. To put it bluntly, it was burning money. In the original novel, Tang San's Tang sect had developed so quickly because of the Seven Treasures glazed sect's support. He could not let this power go. He had to get it in his hands. Just 2 titled Douluo were not enough. They could not determine the overall situation. Furthermore, in terms of the number of titled Douluo, all the powers combined could not compare to the martial Soul Palace. However, he had to pay attention to their wealth. Titled Douluo were still humans. As long as they were not gods, they would not be able to ignore the existence of numbers. Therefore, he had to subdue the Seven Treasures glazed sect. If he could not, he had to think of a way to destroy it. He could not let Tang San benefit from it. Chapter 168. The military power of the Heaven Do Empire and the wealth of the Seven Treasures glazed sect. Chihiro Snow muttered softly. Lu Yuan was right. These 2 things were indeed the most important to the martial Soul Palace. With military power, controlling the entire Heaven Do Empire would be a piece of cake. With the wealth of the Seven Treasures glazed sect, the martial spirit hall would be able to create even better weapons and develop even more advanced equipment. It was important to know that the quality of equipment was one of the most important factors in a war for ordinary soldiers. You're right. But how do you plan to do it? Ning Fengji is not a simple person, Chihiro Snow said. Of course I know that. Lu Yuan smiled faintly. And I have some ideas in mind. But I still need to get familiar with him first. That's easy. Ning Fengji is my teacher now. I can introduce him to you. Chihiro Snow said. No, you can't do that. Lu Yuan said. Why? Chihiro Snow asked doubtfully. I want to get to know Ning Fengji, but you can't introduce me to him. Lu Yuan said. Why? Chihiro Snow was puzzled. Because my identity will be exposed one day. It's just a matter of time. If you introduce me to Ning Fengji, it means that you have something to do with me, which will affect you. However, if Ning Fengji knows me, it's different. It won't affect you at all. Moreover, if Ning Fengji takes the initiative to introduce us to each other, we can meet every day. At most, in the eyes of others, we'll be very close. Even if my identity is exposed, you can push the blame to Ning Fengji because he was the one who introduced us. With that, Lu Yuan smiled brightly. Chihiro Snow was stunned when she heard this. Then, a smile appeared on her charming face. You have a lot of ideas. But it makes sense. Lu Yuan's plan was much more comprehensive. No matter what, he could ensure that she wouldn't be affected. It seemed like this guy really thought of everything for her. Chihiro Snow felt sweet inside. However, what are you going to do? Chihiro Snow asked. It was not easy to attract Ning Fengji's attention. It's simple. Isn't Ning Fengji your teacher? Lu Yuan asked. If I recall correctly, the 3 committee members of the Heaven Do Imperial Academy are also your people, right? Qian Runshua's eyes were filled with astonishment as she asked, You know about this too? Of course. Lu Yuan gently rubbed Chihiro Snow's cheek and said, I have to pay more attention to things related to you, don't I? Naturally, he wouldn't say that he only knew about it because he read the original novel. He wasn't stupid. Besides, wouldn't it be better to increase his favorability with Chihiro Snow? As expected, after hearing Lu Yuan's words, a smile appeared on Chihiro Snow's beautiful face. She said, If you want to talk, then talk. Can you not touch me? Her tone was very gentle, clearly not angry. Lu Yuan naturally knew that she was referring to him rubbing his face against hers. However, not only did Lu Yuan not restrain himself, he rubbed his face against hers again. I didn't touch you, I touched your face. Lu Yuan chuckled as he spoke. Chihiro Snow rolled her eyes. Then what do you want to do? Simple. Lu Yuan said. I'll challenge the Heaven Do Imperial Academy. You can invite Ning Fengji to watch the competition. With my talent, I'll definitely stun Ning Fengji. That's a good idea. Lu Yuan was right. With Ning Fengji's character of cherishing talents, how could he not be moved when he saw such an outstanding genius like Lu Yuan? He would probably invite him to join the Seven Treasures Glazed sect immediately. In this way, wouldn't their relationship be established? But are you sure you can beat those people? Although the Heaven Do Imperial Academy is rotten, there are still some geniuses. Although they're far inferior to you, they're much older than you. Are you sure you can beat them? Lu Yuan asked. Does the Heaven Do Imperial Academy have a Soul King? No. Chihiro Snow said. Do they have a high-level soul ancestor? Chihiro Snow shook her head. Then what are you worried about? Lu Yuan laughed. Looks like you're very confident. Chihiro Snow laughed. Of course, Lu Yuan said, as long as they're not a high-level soul ancestor like you, I can beat them. Lu Yuan's voice was calm, but it was convincing. Chihiro Snow was stunned for a moment, then the corner of her mouth curled up. This was the person she liked. When are you going to challenge them? Chihiro Snow asked. There's no rush. I'll go to the Soul Arena and get a Golden Battle Soul to play with. The owner of the Golden Battle Soul Arena's Golden Battle Soul Arena challenges the Heaven Do Imperial Academy. I think this title should be quite interesting. Lu Yuan laughed. You. Qian Renxue patted Lu Yuan lightly on the back. This guy is really taking everything into consideration. After all, if a nobody were to challenge the Heaven Do Imperial Academy, the other students might not be interested. However, the owner of the Golden Battle Spirit Medallion in the Great Battle Arena would be more valuable. With this identity, Lu Yuan's challenge to the Heaven Do Imperial Academy will be even more explosive. It'll also arouse Ning Fengji's curiosity and achieve his goal. This guy is really scary. He does things one after another. But luckily, he's my man. Qian Renxue's charming face surged with a smile. She wouldn't forget that this guy once said that as long as she was alive, he would never betray the Martial Soul Palace. Since that's the case, then the more outstanding Lu Yuan is, the happier Chihiro Snow will be. But even if you know him, how do you plan to continue your plan? Chihiro Snow asked. I'll have to take it one step at a time. There's no rush. We still have time. Lu Yuan's eyes flickered. There's no rush. His plan still needs some time, at least 2 years. Okay. Chihiro Snow nodded. Lu Yuan lifted his head from Chihiro Snow's shoulder and looked into Chihiro Snow's eyes. Share. Lu Yuan called out softly. What's wrong? Chihiro Snow looked at him, puzzled. No matter what difficulties we encounter in this life, I'll be by your side, even if it means going against the whole world. Lu Yuan looked into Chihiro Snow's eyes with deep affection. Why are you suddenly saying this? Hearing Lu Yuan's words, Chihiro Snow was moved. This guy always liked to say things that made him happy. Chihiro Snow asked with joy in his heart. I just wanted to say it. Lu Yuan smiled and gently moved closer to Chihiro Snow's red lips. Chihiro Snow was shocked. This time, Lu Yuan didn't sneak attack. Instead, he slowly moved closer. However, Chihiro Snow didn't want to hide anymore and closed his eyes. He kissed Chihiro Snow's red lips again. The taste was excellent. Lu Yuan gently hugged Chihiro Snow's waist. Chihiro Snow also began to slowly respond. Chapter 169. Share, I don't want to leave. Lu Yuan pulled on Chihiro Snow's jade-like hand, his face full of reluctance. It's getting late. If you don't leave, where are you going to sleep? Chihiro Snow said. Unknowingly, it was already evening. The two of them had already stayed in the study for almost 4 hours. How about I sleep with you tonight? Lu Yuan leaned over and kissed Chihiro Snow's forehead. Scram, you letcha. Chihiro Snow lifted her jade-like leg and kicked towards Lu Yuan. This guy, he's not being serious again. Lu Yuan hurriedly dodged and pretended to be sad. Sigh, We haven't seen each other for more than a year. You don't even have a heart to ask me to stay for a meal." Looking at Lu Yuan's rare childish appearance, Chihiro Snow was somewhat amused. However, she was still prepared to comfort him. She stood up and helped Lu Yuan tidy up his clothes. "There are many people in the Crown Prince's residence. Didn't you say that you can't reveal yourself now? There will be plenty of opportunities in the future." Her tone was gentle, but firm. Lu Yuan knew that there was no chance for him to stay for a meal. "All right. Then I'll leave." Lu Yuan touched Chihiro Snow's jade-like face and kissed her under Chihiro Snow's reproachful gaze. As he spoke, he put on the golden mask, opened the door of the study, and walked out. "This guy." Chihiro Snow touched the place where Lu Yuan had kissed her. How many times had he kissed her today? He's really getting more and more impudent. Chihiro Snow thought to herself, but her charming face was full of smiles. Looking at Lu Yuan's departing figure, Chihiro Snow once again brushed her face. A moment later, she returned to her appearance as Xue Qinghe. She slowly took off the fox fur coat on her body and gently stroked it with her jade-like hands. "Bad guy," Chihiro Snow softly muttered. Lu Yuan left the Crown Prince's mansion. With the two Douluo leading the way, he didn't alert anyone in the Crown Prince's mansion. "Let's stop here. Seniors, I'll leave Xue's safety in your hands." Lu Yuan bowed to the two of them. These two titled Douluo were Chihiro Snow's greatest guarantee of safety. For the sake of Chihiro Snow, Lu Yuan didn't mind suppressing his pride and bowing to them. To Lu Yuan, Chihiro Snow's life was more important than anything else. Even the entire Douluo continent wasn't as important as a single hair on Chihiro Snow. Of course, if it were Hu Liana and Zhu Zhuqing, it would be the same. The snake spear Douluo and the thorny pufferfish Douluo said, "You're too kind, young Master Yuan. We'll protect young mistress even if we have to die. Many thanks, seniors. I'll take my leave now. Seniors, please don't go any further." Lu Yuan cupped his fists and turned to leave. Looking at Lu Yuan's back, the snake spear Douluo sighed softly and said, "What a godlike person. Young mistress, you're so lucky." Yes, he's talented and knows his manners. His future is limitless. He's really a good match for young mistress. The thorny pufferfish Douluo laughed. Hearing this, the two of them looked at each other and laughed. Then, they turned and entered the Crown Prince's mansion. Star Blue Hotel. Lu Yuan lay on the soft, snow-white bed. Chihiro Snow's beautiful face seemed to be right in front of him. "Little Xue," Lu Yuan called out softly. Then, his eyes suddenly became sharp. In order to protect little Xue's smile, there were some things he had to do. "Senior Crazy Rhino," Lu Yuan shouted softly. Then, the door opened, and the Crazy Rhino Douluo appeared in front of Lu Yuan. "Young master, what are your orders?" "Let's go to the Great Soul Arena in Heavendo City." Lu Yuan laughed softly and said. "Yes, young master," the Crazy Rhino Douluo replied. "Is this the Great Soul Arena in Heavendo Imperial City? It's quite grand." Looking at the tall building in front of him, Lu Yuan's eyes were filled with a trace of surprise, but it disappeared in an instant. "Let's go in." Lu Yuan led the way in, and the Crazy Rhino Douluo followed behind him. "If I remember correctly, we should register a badge first." Thinking back to the description of the Great Soul Arena in the original novel and his understanding of it in this life, Lu Yuan knew that the first thing to do if he wanted to participate in the soul dueling tournament was to register a soul dueling badge. They followed the crowd to the front desk. Lu Yuan didn't wear a mask, because from now on, he was going to start his plan. Furthermore, he needed to hide his identity as the Pope's disciple in the Martial Soul Palace, and it had nothing to do with him. Only the higher-ups in the Martial Soul Palace knew that he was the Pope's disciple, and those who knew his appearance were even rarer. Other than the elders in the Hall of Elders and the Pope's Palace, only Osfa and Sarkaz knew. However, these people wouldn't expose his identity. Without a mask, Lu Yuan's aura naturally made him the center of attention. The person in charge of registering badges was a young lady. At this moment, little stars appeared in her eyes as she looked at Lu Yuan's fairy-like appearance. Can I disturb you for a moment? Lu Yuan asked indifferently. Oh. The female attendant reacted and hurriedly said, Sir, are you here to register a badge? Yes, sorry to trouble you, Lu Yuan said. 5 copper soul coins. What name would you like to use? The female attendant asked. Emperor Dragon, Lu Yuan said. Okay, this is your soul fighting badge. Please keep it well. The female attendant handed the iron soul fighting badge to Lu Yuan. Thank you. Lu Yuan still looked indifferent. He took the soul fighting badge and said, Please register me for a one-on-one soul fighting battle. Thank you. Okay, but what's your rank? Soul Grandmaster, Lu Yuan said indifferently. Okay, sir. The female attendant operated it for a while and said, Your arena is in Arena C. Please get ready. Okay. Lu Yuan nodded, then turned and left. So handsome. Looking at Lu Yuan's back, the female attendant became infatuated again. Arena C. Lu Yuan looked at the roadmap engraved on the wall of the Great Soul Arena and smoothly arrived at Arena C. Arena C was already full of people. The audience was below the arena. When Lu Yuan arrived, his unique immortal-like temperament attracted the attention of everyone present. The men were unhappy and jealous. After all, Lu Yuan was too outstanding. The women, on the other hand, couldn't control themselves. Lu Yuan asked for a private room and walked in with the frenzy rhino Douluo. He preferred silence and didn't like to stay with too many people, especially a group of people he didn't know. After entering the private room, Lu Yuan sat on the sofa, bored to death as he watched the match below through the glass screen. There were 2 Soul Grandmasters, but in Lu Yuan's eyes, their battle was simply child's play. Young Master Yuan, your charm is really great. The frenzy rhino Douluo laughed. When they came in just now, the frenzy rhino Douluo saw the expressions of the women, and they all wanted to eat Lu Yuan. Hearing the frenzy rhino Douluo's words, Lu Yuan's expression didn't change, and he said, You'll get used to it. He knew his appearance better than anyone, and he was already used to the feelings of a young man who liked to show off. He was already used to the admiring gazes of other girls. What really made him happy were the gazes of his loved ones, such as Helena's infatuation, Zhu stubbornness, and Chihiro Snow's tenacity. These were what Lu Yuan was willing to pay attention to. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.